Hi everyone, this is Matt. Welcome to the Real Gamerscore podcast. This week I'm joined by Cameron.
Present.
Tarragon.
Hello.
And Alex.
Hey there.
Yeah, no, not that Alex. Yeah, it's a different Alex. Don't worry about it. We'll just move on. Here at Real Gamerscore, we like to discuss all things Xbox achievements and reviewing 2020 day by day. This week we talk about developing the perfect crunch, keeping the show to an hour, and not buying 20 games in 2020. But first, here's the song of the week. I'm playing Black Ops, fighting through the zombies after dark. Under the screen light, I see a sight that almost stops my heart. I try to leave, but the connection lags just before you make it. You're on the stream, as your screen fills up right before your eyes. You're gamified, cause it's achievement sounds. There's hackers in the lobby messing up your whole account. You've been cheated. Achievement sound. You're trying to leave the lobby cause there's hackers around. Alright, thanks me for that wonderful song of the week that I definitely didn't pre-record. Alright guys, any guesses?
Well, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, so I'll let others guess.
Alex?
Nah, no idea.
Alright, Cameron?
I'll guess that Tarragon will get it.
Oh well, that's probably a pretty safe bet. Alright, Tarragon, what is it, mate?
Pretty sure it's Michael Jackson's Thriller.
It is very much so.
Is it? I was freaking guessing myself so much that I'm just like, I'll look it up. I'll just check the lyrics. Nah.
That's cheating, mate. You can't do that.
I'm going to make myself look like an idiot.
I didn't quite get it until I heard the, I couldn't pick it at all until the chorus kicked in. And even then I was just like, I know this song. Brain. Anyway.
I've been listening to Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox on repeat for the last week or so, and Wayne Brady, of all people, does a cover of this in a jazz style. It's so great.
Wayne Brady is actually a pretty good singer, though.
He is actually a surprisingly good singer, yeah. All right, well, let's get into it. As you've heard, it's a four-man show this week, but we've got a guest, a new guest, Alex.
Two guests, kind of.
Okay, yes. Well, Tarragon is also here. Guest.
Sorry, we've got a guest and we've got a hostage.
Yeah.
which one's which?
Which?
That's that's for the listeners to discern.
Exactly. But Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Pleased to be here.
Do you want to do a little bit of an introduction about yourself? Who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm a Brit, but only recently, this Monday, returned to the country. I know Tarragon through AH101, which is one of the awful rival communities we're not going to mention again. But I've essentially been...
I'll just bleep when you say that. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
I've been gaming for decades, but sort of achievement hunting, if you like, for the last year or so. And got into communities and things as the lockdown started. So turbocharged my 2020, and that's when I met T.
Oh, fantastic. You got any sort of genres or games that you're particularly interested in? You're sort of a generalist, or?
I mean, everyone's a generalist, but I also love anything sort of thinky, turn-based strategy, love my story, love my music.
Oh, you'll fit right in here then. Fantastic. All right. Well, we've got a lot of show to cover and not a lot of time, so we'll just crack straight into it. We'll get through the housekeeping stuff. We've got the Discord if you want to join us and have a bit of a chat. Discord.io/RealGamerscore. If you don't happen to know what Discord is, it's basically a big modern chat room where you can talk about video games or off-topic stuff or just post terrible fucking memes. Which is actually generally is what's going on at the moment. But you can also put questions into the show and things like that. It's where we all sort of meet up, and we're all on there a lot of the time, so definitely hit us up. We've also got a Patreon, patreon.com/RealGamerscore if you want to give us some money. Basically helps, keeps the lights on, let us do competitions, things like that. We really appreciate all of our patrons. And we also occasionally put out outtakes for the bits of the stuff you don't get to hear on this show. I think that's pretty much it. We could talk about the random to-do list. Tarragon, would you like to?
Sure. So, random to-do list, as every time I have to come on and explain this, the random to-do list is a challenge that a monthly challenge that pulls 25 achievements randomly from your collection, and you have that month to try and unlock them. It's nominally competitive, but not really. People use it for various different reasons, just to pick what games they're going to play that month, or some people like to go for the score on the leaderboard. It's pretty relaxed, and anyone can join at any time. So hit me up in the various places I am at. Probably only the Real Gamerscore Discord at this point, but there or on True Achievements.
I really should just clip you saying that so I can just play it each episode. Save you the trouble. All right, now, so we were looking at what's been going on the last couple of weeks, but over the holidays, news is pretty quiet. So we figured we'd do a little bit of a retrospective of 2020, given that we're in the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. And so we've got everything's better now. It's fine. Yep. 2020 is over. Everything's great. Nothing bad has happened whatsoever.
No, nothing bad will happen.
No, exactly.
We've cured COVID. It's all done.
It's done. But yeah, so we've got a bunch of topics that we'll probably just touch on. So we'll just go down the list and see what picks our fancy and weigh in with our overinflated egos and opinions. Let's start with some of this Ubisoft toxicity stuff that we've been talking about over the last few months. Tarragon, you put this one in here, right?
Well, I put all of these ones in technically, but...
Well, yes, but I wasn't going to reveal that to the audience, that you've been doing all the work behind the scenes, all right? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. All right.
Yeah, I only sort of touched on this one briefly. I sort of caught the end of it, but there were a bunch of allegations of sexual misconduct and generally not pretty sleazy behaviour from a bunch of high-ups in Ubisoft, and that's actually caused a lot of fallout. In fact, people have resigned or been sacked and so forth, and I think their stock price has taken hits, and so, yeah, it's been pretty bad. Just watching what's going on there, I'm actually reasonably confident they're going to come through this and actually do something positive about it. But it's a bit hard to say. You always have to kind of take these things in with a grain of salt, as in whether there will be a change. But the fact that they've gotten rid of so many people is, I think, a good sign. So yeah, I wait and see, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, because it's very easy to give any companies like this. It's really easy to rag on any companies like this and just assume they're never going to do anything about it, and it's all just lip service. So I want the best for them, and they seem to be doing the right things. But yeah, I guess, what do you guys think? Because that's my thoughts.
I feel like change is tough, and it shows that Ubisoft used to be a complete boys' club, right? And the founding spirit was continental, Parisian. I mean, the US and a lot of the English-speaking world have been through a lot of strife and pain in the last few years, trying to be somewhat civil and sensible about this stuff. And to an extent, the French-speaking world is just getting on that, and that's Ubisoft. So they're going to have the same tough growing pains. I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah. And I tend to agree. I mean, I'm probably a bit more cynical on the front of them actually doing anything about it. I mean, looking at the article that you've put on your Tarragon, that 25% of the employees have experienced workplace misconduct in one way or another. I mean, that's a shockingly high number for a company as large as this. Yeah,
I would put a caveat on that in how you actually classify that, because it could be something very minor, like somebody said something like a silly joke, versus groping or outright sexual assault. So
absolutely,
yeah.
I'm also going to say that's less than the UK average.
Well, there we go.
I mean, that's awful. It's a huge high number, too high, but it's
yeah.
less than the UK average.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't particularly surprised by those figures. I think the fact that they are actually doing those surveys in the first place is the right move. Again, it's all kind of, these are the right things to be doing. Whether they actually result in a good outcome is the question. But they are doing all of the right things to get to that outcome, and that's why I want to give them a sort of a pass. Kind of, it's crap that they've had this kind of culture, but I want to give them enough time to try and resolve it, and that's yeah.
And I've seen that some people, I don't like to give these people a voice, but some people are like, I don't really care what goes on behind the scenes. I just want the games. The game's the only thing that's important to me, which I don't really agree with that philosophy, but I understand that some people don't want to get involved in how the sausage is made. Sorry, there are sort of two sides to that in that, well, yeah, the company itself might have some bad parts of the culture, but that's not everybody in the company, and that's not all of the people who are making those games. It's a similar story with Cyberpunk right now. Cyberpunk 2077 was a big disaster on its release, and it's a buggy mess. It's still a fun game. I've been playing the hell out of it. But the culture and the management of that is what caused that to happen. To tar the entire development team with that, there's hundreds, possibly thousands of people working on that game. You can't say that every single one of them was complicit in making this game launch badly. It's purely on managers. And the same thing would go with Ubisoft. You can't tar the entire company because there are a certain percentage of bad actors, and the game management was complicit in letting those bad actors remain. Anyway, that's I tend to agree, and also, one of the things that you kind of have to accept if you look into how video games are made is just the number of people who are involved in video games. Chances are someone is going to touch that video game who you have some disagreement with in terms of politics or views or anything like that. Like, realistically, like, that's just how it is. It's how the medium works because so many people are involved in the process. The interesting, I think that what I'm hoping to see from this is that obviously we want better culture and we want this to improve, but I'm hoping that we also get better games out of it. I hope we get better experiences coming to the end consumer, because some of the stories you're hearing is that like Alex said, like, it was very much a boys' club in terms of not just who was in charge, but who made the decisions, who would put the the kibosh on interesting ideas, who said, for example, one of the things that came out was Odyssey having the choice between a male and female character, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I should say. Apparently, it was originally going to only be a female, and they were basically told by the higher ups that they had to include a male lead because they didn't think that would identify with their customers, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think that precedes Odyssey. I think that was what was the one which had the twins?
Syndicate.
Syndicate. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Syndicate. They wanted to have a female lead, and then it was talked down. So they did a split story, and what eventually ended up is that about 75% of the story was the male. So it's kind of a frustrating thing that would happen. But and even Odyssey, had its detractors. So.
Yeah. Well, if you play through Odyssey, you'll notice if you play as the male and female characters, Alexandria is much less well written than Cassandra, and it really does show. I haven't played through Valhalla yet. It'd be interesting to see because I know that's a sort of you can play between male and female there.
I think the consensus for Valhalla, or at least what I've played, both voice actors are just amazing.
Oh, great. Well, that's good. That's how it should be, right? Is that there should be equal consideration given to them. Cameron, you got anything you'd like to weigh in on this?
Not really. I was going to sidetrack more into just a comment before. The only consideration I want to take into gaming too is less crunch time.
Yeah, which I'm sure will come up. We'll talk about Cyberpunk after this probably. But yeah, like the change of the culture of how video games are made. In terms of not just who gets to make the decisions, but how they're worked on and that sort of stuff is really, really important. I don't think it's been. Again, like, crunch has been something that we've talked about for ages. Even since early on in this show, we've talked about you hear reports out of like Rockstar, especially with Red Dead 2 was like crazy stuff, and they were talking about how their writers were working nights and things like that. And then they had to quickly backtrack and say, "Oh no, they like doing it, and we pay them well, etc., etc."
It doesn't matter if they like doing it. The thing is, it's been shown, like, scientifically, like, there are statistics that point to crunch not producing the best results. And in fact, having people work less ends up with a better result and better output. And it's just this mindset of management that, oh yeah, we'll just get people to work more and work more and work more. And that's really a myth. I don't know.
Is it Blizzard that it's more common that the managers will take extended periods of leave and most of the staff end up in severe crunch?
I mean, I think
I suspect it's every. I suspect it's every single large company. EA was notorious for it years and years ago, and got the moniker of the world's worst company for a few years as a result. And that was kind of that was spawned by the wife or girlfriend of a developer there, basically posting a blog post about being essentially a game developer widow because she could never see her partner because he was just on constant crunch. And that spawned a whole movement around this sort of stuff. But that said, it got a little bit better at the time. So EA took that on board and did some things about it. But it's obviously still a huge part of the crunch, of part of the culture of game development in big studios. And it shouldn't be. The thing is that game developers are probably well paid for what they do, but they're not paid enough to compensate that loss of their life and time. And nobody really gets into game development for the money. So these are often passion projects, or they're passionate about it, and to essentially slave drive these people and burn them out, it's bad for the industry overall because you lose talent, and it's for nothing. I mean, yeah, there's money involved, obviously, but you're going to get a better result if you don't burn these people out. And you're not going to have turnover. Anyway, it's just the way the gaming industry works is quite frustrating, particularly on AAAs, and I wish things would change. I think they are, but it's it's all like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say.
I
remember. Oh, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
I was going to say, part of why it's so prominent this year, I think, is lockdown and the combination of remote working combined with the new console generation. And actually, we as a public and the gaming press just have not been at all sympathetic about that. It's really interesting to see how it's been handled different places. So you've got Microsoft with the Forza franchise. They had 2 studios switching in, year out, so they could put out Motorsport Horizon, precisely with the aim that they don't have to do this to their people. They have room to be creative. And that's a great example of where it's paid off, right? Horizon is one of the great series in gaming right now. But this year, because they've got this no crunch attitude, they've just had to skip a year. There's been no Forza game. We don't know when the next one is. And then you look at the opposite.
It's 2022.
Yeah, but I think that's a good thing. That's looking after your staff and doing the right thing by them before worrying about what's going to happen with the public. You'll make it up. You may not make as much money, but you will make it up in time by not losing staff to burnout or
Yeah, I feel like video game companies, like many companies in the Western capitalist society that we live in, it's very hard to get them to look at long term, right? All they're looking at is short term. Get this game out. Let's worry about the next game. That might not even be my problem. I might not even work here anymore. And so having that
counterpoint to that, AAA games have a minimum sort of 5-year lifespan development from start to finish. So they do have to look ahead, but they also have to account for the fact that they're not going to get any return on their investment for 5+ years. So that's where publishers come in and will put the money up front in order to kickstart those games. But so I wouldn't say it's a short-term goal. It's just that they want to try and reduce that lead time as much as possible, and I think that's management's ideal, but not that's at the expense of people's lives and livelihood ultimately.
And I think we're seeing that more on the edges of the development in terms of how far they are from the console. So third parties, you notice more of these stories coming out about places like EA, Rockstar, Ubisoft, things like that, rather than, let's say, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. Whereas, that they're publishing to their own consoles, they tend to have better first-party support. And I don't think that's an accident, right? I don't think that's a coincidence that you're hearing more about these third-party developers. So you're right, because it's more about that investment about getting these out to as many consoles as possible, which I think kind of is what happened with CD Projekt Red for Cyberpunk.
I think Japan as well, because if you're talking about Sony and Nintendo, they have really strict overtime rules, and I don't particularly know the ins and outs of that, but it is a completely different culture, and it's clearly a culture that's good at making amazing video games. But they have stricter rules than us about what can and can't be done.
Is it Japan or is it China that has the... it might be Korea. There's like a 996 working thing where it's basically you work 9 to 9, 6 days a week, and that's kind of the accepted like norm for work. I forget where it is exactly, but that's actually pretty hideous by our standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I believe it's China. I think is the main one that has that. Just looking at 72 hours per week. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just crazy. It's like, come on, people need to live. People don't live to work. So yeah, different cultures.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we see an improvement going forward. I guess is the sort of takeaway point, because it hasn't been this good this year, and especially with the changes with COVID and lockdown and people working differently. We all understood there was going to be changes and delays to video games and things like that, but I'm hoping that most of the changes are going to... I'm hoping that, if things get back to normal, or when or if, that some of the good changes that have happened stick around. We've touched on Cyberpunk a little bit. Do we want to talk a little bit more about what's been going on there in terms of... I mean, we've talked about how sort of management have sort of shit the bed in terms of over-promising, under-delivering, and basically pushing their workers to the breaking point. But then on the other side, people have also gone completely fucking nuts in terms of, threatening developers and...
demanding refunds, but still having a copy of the game.
Yeah,
I think that was one guy.
One guy.
Yeah,
I've seen a few of those posts.
I mean, look, one guy on Twitter, that's all it takes, right?
I'm sure there are people who are like that. It's like, no, I want my thing for free. Because there are always people who want the thing and don't want to pay for it. That's, you see it all the time. What I find quite disgusting is like sending death threats ever to anyone is just the stupidest thing.
For any reason.
But to be so upset at the bugs in a game that you think it's worth getting on Twitter and abusing someone by threatening them, it boggles the mind that is their go-to, and it boggles the mind how often this happens. And I hate to bring up the gender card as well, but often women are focused or get more abuse or more targeted sexual abuse specifically. And particularly if women are perceived to be the source of the problem. Let's say BioWare had this with some of the writing on Andromeda. Women women writers, who were not the only writers on staff, they've got heaps of writers, they decided to target the women writers on that team and bombard them with sexual abuse. And it's just like, really? It's a game. It's a game. Come on. It's not like Trump trying to cause sedition. It's a game. If you're going to abuse someone, look at the important things. not and even then it's not appropriate, but it's just
exactly. But it's take a step back and take a look at yourself, and just think about why am I doing this? Why do I care that much? What am I achieving here? I
guess that points to, I think, it's a particularly nerd culture thing, I think, to identify very strongly with the things that you like. So I like X and X game, therefore I'm a PlayStation person, and therefore PlayStation is part of my identity. Therefore, if anybody criticizes PlayStation, I am being personally attacked and I need to respond in kind. It's not just gaming culture that has that, but it's certainly wider in the nerd culture, but it seems to be more prevalent in geekier kind of cultures, including gaming. But that's not appropriate.
No, exactly. I think that's, like you said, I think it's an issue with anything that people get emotionally invested in and become fans of, because it becomes, like I said, part of their identity. I think with video games, though, people need to take a step back and also realize that these companies do not care about you at all, and do not identify yourself with a soulless corporation that is just here for your hard-earned cash. Because if you're not paying for their game, they literally do not care about you, and you need to always remind yourself that before you make a flame war on Twitter.
Yeah, the only reason they will be interested in you is if they can sell you something. Just that's the pure equation there. Some companies will do the right thing or do better things by consumers. I would actually say Microsoft is doing a lot of good things by consumers, Game Pass, etc. And they've made a lot of steps in those directions. But if it's kind of just getting onto Microsoft, if Microsoft had have won the last generation, would they have been anywhere near as pro-consumer as they are now?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, actually, that this position that Microsoft have been forced into has now resulted in a much better outcome for consumers overall, and that's because they've had to tilt, or pivot, I should say, and that's the avenue they're going down, and they're sticking with it, and that's great. But as a general rule, companies are there to make money, and making money, you don't generally make money by just giving things away for free. So, yeah. But ultimately, they don't particularly care about very, very passionate fans unless something explodes. Like Ubisoft, sexual allegations and so forth. Yeah.
One thing that's been an eye-opener for me in the last year, having just joined the community, is I've always looked at these people having flame wars on Twitter and stuff as being some remote vocal minority, which are nowhere near the heart of, the gaming culture I love. And actually being more active in TA, being more active in Discord, seeing some of the Twitter stuff, which is a minefield, I'm realising, no, actually, if we're talking about people who are sitting there working remotely, maybe not seeing too many people a lot of the time, maybe not quite realising how I've been brought up to act, no, they're everywhere. They're just people like you and me. They're right there in our communities, and trying to figure out a way to actually get on with these people and also help encourage everyone just to try and think about how someone else is feeling has been one of the big 2020 things for me, because it's not actually some distant bogeyman who thinks indecipherably to me. It's often somebody who loves the same games I love and hangs out in the same sites that I hang out in, and we just have this one tiny difference that sort of I seem to care more about how someone else will think about how I'm treating them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we have to remind ourselves that people who talk about video games passionately online are we talk about these crazies or people who are a little too extreme or I don't want to label them with anything but in particular, but you know who I'm talking about. We label them as, like you said, vocal minorities, right? But we are the vocal minority as a group because we are a small part of people who actually talk about video games as opposed to the millions and millions of people who play them. We are the minority of people who are really passionate about it and made it part of our identities and part of what we talk about and what we do, and then even achievement hunting is even a smaller niche within that. And so you're right. It's like, it's like, oh, well, it's a vocal minority. It's like, yeah, but we all are. Like, you're right, exactly. Like, we're not so dissimilar from these people, which is great because it means that that there's ways of bridging that gap and bringing them on side and befriending them and helping them. But it also is slightly worrying in terms of like how close we are. Some people are just one bad day away from just chucking it all in and just going and issuing death threats on Twitter to someone who doesn't deserve anything of the sort.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of address things like the disconnect between being online versus being in person, and particularly age. So if you're a 17-year-old on the internet and you're angry about a game not coming out when you wanted it to come out, you might launch into a tirade and throw verbal abuse and sexual threats and all sorts of stuff. And that's understandable. It's not appropriate, but it is understandable given age and disconnect on the internet versus you don't really think that what you're throwing your vitriol at is actually a real person. Like, you don't see it and feel that. As you get older, I think, particularly if you've been on the receiving end of some of that stuff, as you get older, I think you kind of come around and realize, hey, actually, that was pretty crap. Or certainly, Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back on my own youth. I'd been a shit at times. Absolutely.
At times.
Yeah. Like once or twice. But, you know, I didn't have the internet back then. But, yeah, I mean, I would have gotten that angry and that vitriolic. I just didn't have a easy avenue to abuse the people that I was throwing my vitriol at. So, yeah, I think a lot of it's age, immaturity, and not really recognizing the person that you're throwing that at is actually a real person at the end who has emotions and will be affected by what you say.
Yeah, I think, like, I used to agree with you on that for the most part. But I think the last couple of years, in terms of not just the video games, but if we look at, you know, I don't want to get too political, but the Trump stuff and looking at like how those divides have happened and these echo chamber communities that these people are part of, I think we're seeing more and more of these people who have started at these younger ages, you know, say, you know, when the internet was first beginning, like, you know, in the 80s, and have just grown up and are still at that stage in their 40s and 40. Like, you talk to some people who are, I mean, like, probably maybe, I don't know. I get. You're right. It's hard to tell what age people are on the internet because they don't tend to reveal it. But surprisingly, yeah, exactly. No one on the internet, no one knows that you're not a dog, right? It's surprising the age of some of these people because like normally I would agree. It's like, oh yeah, you know, it's kids on the internet who are just.
I'm not saying it's all kids.
That's
why I classified immaturity just as much.
Sure, yeah, immaturity in general.
I was going to say the other side of it too is also the fact that people can just hide behind a persona, like having that what's the word I'm looking for?
Anonymity.
Yeah, pretty much it.
And the other side of that, there are simply bad people out there, bad actors. There are people who do this stuff because they get off on it for some reason. I saw a report on I think it was back when TV was a thing. I saw a thing on TV about them chasing down a particular person who was going to, let's say someone's kid had died and they'd put up a webpage just as a kind of a memorial thing. And this was the kind of person who would go to those pages and just put absolute crap on there and post porn and through all this other abuse at these kind of things and would specifically target these pages for this sort of abuse. And it's just like, why? Like, obviously they're getting something out of it. And there are people like that who specifically want to troll or want to hurt people. Yeah, so I mean that's going to be a vast minority, but there are people out there like that. But certainly, I'm not saying that everybody throws abuse at people online because their game has been delayed is in that category. But you know, there are all sorts of people. Basically, I guess that's my point. Yeah.
And then you also need to filter out, you know, all the Chinese and Russian bot farms that are just stoking every argument you've ever heard for everything. Got to try and filter those out as well. All these people who have one name and a bunch of numbers after it on Twitter and don't have a Twitter icon.
Just going back to the politics side of that, I think what the problem has been for the last 5 years or so has been that there is a very prominent in-power person with a very loud loudspeaker blatting out this crap and feeding these things. That has been the main problem for why we're at the state we're in now. If we hadn't have had a frickin' president of a country blatting out conspiracy theories that are easily debunked as if they are true and telling people to not trust the media or any other reports that they have except for this conspiracy theory crap, we probably wouldn't have the extremism that we have right now. And I would hope that once he's been silenced, because it seems like he's been shut up for a while at least, would hope that things will calm down and that people will start to realise that they've gotten a bit too riled up about this. I would like to. I'm being idealistic, but I hope that people will lean back to being reasonable once they've stopped being angry.
My
I
worry is,
I share your hope, and that's part of it. But another big part is just that being passionate is human, right? And I definitely go on a lot of passionate rants myself. I've learned over time those aren't passionate rants at a person trying to sexually intimidate them or anything. But I definitely get passionate and I definitely go on rants, and pretty much every person I know does. And I think, you know, all you can try to do is direct it. into something positive, into extolling why you love games and which games you've loved and why you loved them, and let's think about how we can get back to that place where we're making great games and enjoying them together, right? But you can't turn off that passion. That would be pretty sad in itself. And so we've got all these people who are passionate and trying to be passionate.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with passion when it becomes abuse. And when it becomes ignoring the facts, that's when it becomes problematic.
All right. Well, let's move on because we have been beating this dead horse a little bit. Our next topic is no E3. I don't really think there's too much to say there, except that they cancelled E3 this year because of COVID. I remember they cancelled it at the very last minute.
We still got to devolve a digital E3. It's fine.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, whatever.
I guess.
I mean,
do we miss it?
Yeah, that's my question. Is did it matter?
To me it did, because I more so just had like a bit of a ceremony kind of thing. Like I'd take the day off, or if it was a public holiday, I'd have it off already. Just wake up early in the morning and watch it. Like more so a tradition. That's why I was pretty bummed out. But I mean,
I kind of wonder. Yeah, I kind of wonder if we would have seen the consoles revealed a lot sooner than we did if E3 had have happened.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it was the other way around, because when they cancelled E3, they pitched quite a good concept, which is we were going to have monthly sort of video calls, certainly from Microsoft, probably from Sony. They were going to share stuff, show us stuff. That sounded awesome, right? But because they weren't willing to share the consoles, and because they weren't willing to share the prices, they kept cancelling those and pushing them back. And I think also because Halo Infinite wasn't ready for prime time, still probably isn't. So I think what they initially pitched as an E3 replacement would have been an improvement. I'd love to see the drip feed of stuff through the year, getting excited every month. It might, it would be a thing for podcasts to tackle, but I'd love to see that. The problem was that they were so cagey about their announcements and not wanting to show off that there were two form factors for each console that they cancelled things anyway, and that would have been a problem any year.
Yeah, and I'm sure that coronavirus probably didn't help in terms of making sure that, getting people into a room to, how do you record a press conference when, everyone has to be socially distancing, people can't travel, games and demos aren't being developed in the same building anymore, builds have to get moved around, how do you get dev units out to people? Like, there's all kinds of logistical challenges that I'm sure, I mean, I already think E3 was on the decline already, right? Like, I was pretty sure this was going to be the last one they ever did anyway.
They've been saying that every year for like the last 5, though. So
Sure, but it's been getting sad though in terms of, I mean, like once Sony pulled out, really, I kind of feel like the writing was on the wall.
Yeah, so Sony pulled out, Nintendo pulled out. So I guess it's really just the major game, like third-party game people and Xbox. And even I think Xbox has kind of got their own side thing now. So
well, yeah, because they technically do it away from the convention because they do it beforehand in their own, and they own the. Their names on the
building.
On the building, yes. Yeah. So it's like, well, and now Bethesda doesn't need to do a press conference because they're owned by Microsoft. So,
I was just going to say, just on the point of the monthly announcements, they started doing that. At least Xbox did. I think they did one. I think they maybe did 2 before they stopped.
They did one in August, I think it was. Or one in July, I think it was, which is where they showed off. They're like, oh, we've got brand new games. And they showed off Valhalla, and everyone was like, what is this?
Yeah,
where's the first-party stuff?
I think they kind of shot themselves a little bit in the foot there because they built up this expectation that there were going to be all these amazing reveals. But if you're doing it once a month like that, you're not going to get these big, amazing reveals every month. So, yeah, I think the fact that there was a perceived, expectation that there was going to be all this groundbreaking information every single month didn't meet with what they were trying to achieve with just their monthly sort of updates, and that's probably why they cancelled it, because they had to kind of it's managing expectations essentially. So and if they hadn't have done that, they would have just kept on getting bad press every month, which is absolutely not ideal.
Yeah.
And then just before we move on, they announced basically immediately that there was going to be one next year, or this year, I should say. Do we think it's going to happen? I mean, assuming the US opens up by June.
I reckon no, on the basis that it's not E3 who pulled it in the first place, it's the game developers who refused to go. I think the same public pressures will probably call the devs and publishers to make the same decisions. So I think E3 will be pushing for it, but I reckon too many people will pull out again.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, let's see.
I say if we get a vaccine this year.
Yeah, what would need to happen? We would need America to be in control of the virus. Even with vaccine rollout, they're not going to be able to vaccinate enough of the population before June, July to be able to have that sort of impact that would allow a conference of 20, 30, however many thousands of people in the same room. You know, I don't see it happening. At least not in the form that it has been before. An online variant of it, or a smaller crowd version of it, perhaps, but I just don't see it happening with the way things are currently, particularly in America. And who's going to fly there anyway? I mean...
No, God, no. Wouldn't do it if they paid me. All right, yeah, fair enough. I tend to agree. I think it's be a bit ridiculous for them to try again.
I think 2022 is the earliest we're going to start seeing stuff like that again.
Yeah, but I think my question is that if they miss 2 of them in a row, is the ESA going to be able to afford to do E3 2022? You know, are they still going to have... Because the E3 makes up so much of their budget in terms of how much money they make from the conference itself that, like, they're already in pretty rough shape. We talked about it when they first announced it, almost a year ago now. And we were already talking about how it was going to be a different show, and they were trying to get influencers in to do more of a social media, make it more of an experience thing, and people didn't seem all that keen on it.
Honestly, I think 2021, pretty much until we have like mass vaccine rollout, 2022 they'll try and do something, but it'll probably be the last one.
No. We touched on the new consoles coming out. You might have heard that they released a new Xbox and a new PlayStation, apparently.
Did they?
Yeah, well,
I can't find any in the shops.
Yeah, sure.
They must be coming out next year.
Yeah, every time I go in, they're like, oh yeah, those are just the display boxes. So they clearly,
We sent our entire shipment to Portugal. According to Balak.
You dickhead. So I guess, okay, of the 4 of us, who has? We'll talk about Xbox. Who has the new Xbox?
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a Series X and a Series S.
Tarragon, you've got 2 Series X's?
I've only got 1. I sold the other. I had two on release day, and that was just to make sure that all my friends had one. But I didn't actually end up needing the second one, so I sold it to a guy at work.
Gotcha. And I got one that I had to swap out, and then so I've got my new one, and it seems to be working fine.
So your Hall of Fame one?
Yes, my Hall of Fame. Oh yeah, my Hall of Fame one. That, I mean, look, they were really nice about it, but the Hall of Fame guys did send me a broken Xbox, a trophy that's misaligned, and a hoodie that doesn't fit me. All right, so I'm anyway, they're working to fix the scenario. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, got one. Launch day after, thanks to postage. Love it to bits. It is just night and day, isn't it? Because you turn it on, and I've got a whole ritual by now of turning my one on and going to make a coffee and coming back, and maybe the screen's on, but it probably hasn't noticed what games I have installed. With the Series X, you just press the button and you lift your head up, and it's already booted and it's on the menu. And that's night and day. I love it to pieces.
So that's a pretty strong recommendation on your front. What about you guys, Tarragon? What about you?
I didn't really like. I mean, I was already running. I was on Alpha Skip Ahead, so I actually already had the new dashboard that was on the Xbox Series X. I'd had that for ages, so it wasn't really a change for me. Like, I got it, and it's basically, yep, this looks like the same Xbox that I just had. It's just a bit quicker. But I think it's just the things you don't sort of. It's the things you don't realize are not there anymore. The loading delays are no longer there. The boot up time, it's just. You kind of just get used to them not being there anymore because they're not annoying you. They're not like that little grain of sand in your shoe. So, yeah, it's a much nicer experience now. Quick resume when it works is really good. So I've just been jumping between like Cyberpunk and some other game. And it was when I was doing the Shadow of Mordor stuff as well. I was just able to quick resume across a few games. So that stuff's really nice. I don't think it's quite fully realised. I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk, of course, but Cyberpunk is essentially working in backwards compatibility mode, so it's not able to take advantage of the full hardware, which means it doesn't get the full SSD velocity stuff as well, so it's just a bit slower. So it'll be nice to see things when we actually get games that are written from the ground up for that console and take advantage of everything. Until then, it's nice and quick, but it's not revolutionary to me anyway.
Pretty much the same. Pretty much the same thoughts there. I remember reading one of the reviewers saying it was like the new console was boring, but that was the best part about it. It was everything we've seen before, but faster.
Yeah. See, like I'm. That's kind of what I think, but I'm actually a little disappointed. I gotta say. I mean, like people listeners to the show will know that I was not planning on buying one at launch because I didn't really see the purpose. I'm happy that I won one. I got one sent to me, and I love the form factor, and I like that I have it here, and it works well.
You didn't have to drive out and get one.
Exactly. Yeah, that definitely did help too. I mean, I got my replacement delivered right before Christmas, like on Christmas Eve, so that was good. But like, I think what kind of cemented the idea that I wasn't really feeling it all that much was that, yeah, I got it. It didn't work. So I played it for a little bit. It broke. I sent it away. It took there's a whole journey about me trying to send it off and actually get someone to fucking pick it up so I could get it replaced. So that took like 2 weeks. I didn't miss it in the 2 weeks I had it. I went straight back to my one. I barely noticed a difference. And like, I'm excited for the potential, but like nothing about the console at the moment is really interesting me in a way that I was hoping it was going to. I mean, part of that is we just don't have a killer app for it. You know, we don't have our Halo Infinite. We don't
Valhalla is probably the best next gen example game that we've got at the moment.
See, out of everybody here, I'm probably the one that's probably placed the most Series X games, I would dare say.
Probably, yeah.
Other than the crashes, COD has been phenomenal. The one I'm really looking forward to is the medium.
Yeah,
I feel like that's when we're going to see some like power come through. But Valhalla is an absolute gem.
Even though it does have its issues, Digital Foundry has done a bunch of deep dives on Valhalla and its performance on the next gen consoles. And before it got patched, there were quite a few hiccups and problems. And even now, there are still some issues on the series consoles that are not on the PlayStation ones. PlayStation has its own issues as well. All of those will get fixed. That's just tweaking and tuning.
How much you get out of it really does depend on which games you're playing. Because I've found for two in particular, it makes night and day difference. One of them is Castle Storm 2, actually, which I don't think many people here will be playing, but a lot of you will remember Castle Storm 1. It was this weird sort of 2D side-scrolling real-time strategy game where you try to knock down each other's castles. Loved it, bought the sequel. It doesn't really run on the One X. It's just too slow. Like, you try playing it, you can feel the slowdown as you're trying to time your hero's slashes, that kind of thing. It got to the point where I don't use my hero in sort of personally take direct control mode because it's too slow. On the Series X, it's actually a game again. I love it. And the other one is Forza Horizon 4, which I've already sung the praises of Horizon in this podcast. But it's now so quick that if you're doing a Forzathon Live or something, which means that between you have to try and hit a danger zone or a speed zone or a jump many times in succession, it's actually now quicker to teleport and load up to be in front of the jump again than it is just to drive round. That's how quick the load times are. On the flip side, if you're playing, say, Ori, which Ori is a great game, but there is zero difference between Ori 1 anyway, on the One and the Series X, because it just runs on the One, so what's there to improve?
Well, apparently the Series X version now works in 6K or something ridiculous.
I think that's Ori 2, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's Ori 2, yes.
Going back to Forza Horizon 4, I gotta say, having car swaps go from 10 seconds down to 1 second is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's really just the game. You eventually you're going to find a game, and Matt, you'll probably find this at some point. You're going to play a game and suddenly go, "Wow, that's just amazing!" The speed.
100%, and I know that it's going to happen. You know, like this isn't me saying that this thing's a lemon and that it's never going to take off. I know we're going to get to that stage, but I really feel like Microsoft needed to have something that showed that off in a way that was, like a first-party thing that did that. But I think that, Forza is a good example, but it is an older game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was the plan.
Yeah, I'm sure that was the plan, but I feel that the messaging from Microsoft is they're not that worried about it. They've chosen a completely different way, like marketing and approach this generation than Sony has. Sony's gone the regular console release, revolutionary kind of design, new controller, all that sort of stuff. And that's all great. That's exactly what they should do. Microsoft has kind of gone a different direction and really focused and gone hard with the pro-consumer Game Pass, cross-platform. We have got everything backwards compatible, and they're two distinctly different approaches. And I feel like Microsoft's is more, we're playing the long game here. So actually having stuff on launch is not. It's important, but it's not so important that it's going to tank the entire strategy. So yeah, I don't feel like Microsoft are really worried, if that makes sense.
Well, when else in time have you been able to pick up a console and just get a subscription to Game Pass and have free, 300 games?
Over 100, I think, is their marketing message.
Yeah. Over 100, but like if you're getting Ultimate, realistically, you're getting
sure, you get
300.
PC and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you're right. Like
and
EA access, yeah, exactly. So like again, the value proposition is there, but I think that in terms of what I look for in video games, and in terms of what interests me in video games, I think I align more this generation with what Sony's approach is in terms of making, larger story-driven experiences that only work on their new hardware that they put a lot of time and money into. Whereas Microsoft looks like it's more of an iterative, wider sort of net that they're throwing out there of sort of middle of the road games in terms of, like we've talked about this before, in terms of the Game Pass launch game. Which is fine. I don't think it's a bad move at all. They need to be moving in separate directions really to be competitive, because there's no point in them trying to fight each other on the same ground. But I think that in terms of what I look for in games now, because I'm trying to move away from this buying every game that comes out just because it's come out, just because it's on sale.
You have a question about that as well later.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I was looking at. I just hadn't been looking through my emails and looking at my receipts, and I was like, wow, I did not do nearly as well as I thought I did. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, I think I'll be interested to see how it goes. But I don't think it's quite setting the world on fire in a way that I was interested in so far. But that's kind of what I expected. All right, let's. Speaking of Xbox console games, we had the Halo Infinite delay. I mean, we've sort of talked about this a little bit before, but I think what the latest news was that they're looking at end of this year launch for that game. Potentially.
I heard mid, but I'm not too sure.
It won't be mid. It'll be late. Halos are generally late in the year anyway. Yeah, it would be late this year. I would potentially push it to mid to late the year after, like 2022.
You might be right, yeah. Which is crazy considering it's supposed to come out.
If they do that, then it will be a Series S and X exclusive by that point. There's absolutely no reason to continue trying to release on the one.
With that, do we think it's going to be like a Cyberpunk kind of situation where they should just cut the Xbox One?
Yes, I believe so. Yep, 100%.
Yeah, if it's going to go for that long. It
depends on what they've done with it. The stuff that they showed us last summer, that didn't really look like a Series X game, and it's tough to say because it's open world. But even to compare to something like Valhalla, it looks like they've engineered this from the ground up to be manageable by current consoles. And if it is, they should stick with that. The thing is, I just don't know how the game's programmed, right? They should put it on the platforms that can realistically cope with it, whatever those are.
Yeah. And I think that, just the idea that this was supposed to come out in November last year is insane. In terms of, because it was clearly not ready for prime time. I mean, and obviously, there was the argument, it was still in pre-alpha, et cetera, it wasn't done.
Yeah.
Let's step back from that a second. If we didn't have a new console right now, that was so much more powerful, and we looked at that footage and thought, okay, this is going to be an Xbox One game, we probably wouldn't have had a problem with it. It's not as polished as it could be, but it's also completely in line with what the hardware is capable of. The concerns were more that this is not a next-gen looking game. And that, I think, is because they've been developing it for the One for so long, and then they've tried to tack on a bunch of the extra bells and whistles that could come with the X. But to get the best results, you kind of have to go the other way. You have to start with the X, develop for that, and then downgrade what you need to get it to run on the older hardware. And that's basically how a lot of PC-driven games work. They will design for the best hardware on PC, and then they will tweak and tune things down until it runs well on other platforms. This whole notion that the last generation is holding things back is generally a myth, because games are generally written for PC, best hardware anyway. So it's only really first-party titles that might have that issue, such as Halo, and I think Halo probably did suffer from that. And that's, given the criticism they got, I think that's part of the reason they decided to just delay, because they weren't going to release a great game that was going to blow everyone's socks off. And yeah, who knows? I think the delay is a good thing. I generally don't have a problem with people like them big companies just delaying a game. If it's not ready, it's not ready. Don't crunch your team to try and get to a date and not have the game ready anyway, and having destroyed your team. It's crazy. So just let the game take as long as it's going to take. Yes, I know there's more expenses and costs in that, but you will make it up eventually if the game is good enough. Anyway, yeah, that's my point. I'm not disappointed that they delayed it. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed, but I'm not throwing Xbox under the bus and saying... No, exactly. And yeah, the state it was in, it was an Xbox One game that they showed, and that's not what they needed.
I think this is why my feeling is they should just go ahead and release it sooner rather than later on both generations, because if they have made fundamentally an Xbox One game, which can be made to, tarted up a bit on the Series X, well then just release it now on the Xbox One, or as soon as it's ready. Sorry, I agree with you on giving it the time it needs, but I think to try and fundamentally re-engineer it would be a lost cause. Sort of, you made it at this level of spec, get it out at this level of spec, make a good game, publish it, and please make your next one Series X first.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on what the tech is. So if they've written it on one engine, and maybe it's just the graphics side of the engine that needs to be changed, they might pull it out, put in another graphics engine, and they need to kind of basically remodel everything and relight everything, all that sort of stuff. It depends how complicated a job that's going to be. I mean, they've already got the story, they've already got the scripts, they've already got the voice acting, they've already got the majority of the building blocks there. It's just getting the graphics updated, essentially, to suit the new consoles. I'm not a game developer. I don't really know exactly how difficult that would be, but and it would be a lot of work to recast all of that stuff. But I wonder if that's going to be slightly easier to do than writing the entire game from scratch in a brand new engine. But it just depends what their stack is like, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the other problem is that if this Halo came out and it was bad, we might not get a new Halo. Like, this might be the end of it, because realistically, they have, in terms of Halo's popularity, it really peaked in 2007 with Halo 3. I mean, Reach and ODST had some good support in 2010, 2009. But it's, on the last generation we had one Halo. Well, we had Halo Wars, but that's a spin-off. But in terms of actual mainline Halo releases, we had Halo 5, which was not well received at all. On the multiplayer side, it was okay, but in terms of story and in terms of what people were mostly looking for in the Halo experience, people were not happy with it. And they've spent the rest of the generation working on this, saying it's going to come out for this, it's going to come out for the one, it's going to come out for the one, and then to basically say, oh well, it's actually going to come out on both, and then to not deliver on it. I just don't think that would be a good look. I think I'm way more on your side, Tarragon, in terms of giving them as much time as they need to make the best experience possible, because they need to hit it out of the park with this one.
Yeah, I think the next Halo game needs to be good. It has to be good. So give them the time to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the trailer, the end of that trailer where they had like that brute doing its big speech at the end, that didn't really do it for me. It didn't blow me away, and it didn't really get me excited for the story. So I guess, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to miss a target here again. But yeah, I'm wait and see. But yeah, it certainly needed more work.
I'm rather worried about the direction of the whole thing. With everything you said about, ODST and Reach were great, but the market was fading. 4 wasn't liked, 5 wasn't liked. MCC is an amazing product, but it wasn't at launch. They've now gone to this open world thing, and it feels like they're just running away from trying to emulate what Bungie did. When I think about what I loved about the original Halo games, it was that everything was so rich and detailed. You'd run down a corridor and there would be background chatter, there would be fleeing grunts yelling in panic. Every sort of part of the level seemed to have been crafted, and there was an attention to detail to it. And then you look at that.
There were a few levels in Halo 1 that were a bit...
Oh yeah, 1, yeah, absolutely. But 3 in particular, there was just a level of polish to the whole thing that you'd expect from a AAA game. And it felt like we weren't getting that in the area that we were shown in that demo over the summer. It felt like it was a pretty empty area, to be honest, with a bit of a thing that had been stuck in the middle of it that you were running up to.
Yeah, I'm worried that it's going to be more Far Cry than Halo at the end of the day, and how they tie a narrative back into it, because like the Halo narrative has kind of gone off the rails since 343 took over it and basically just threw half of it out. Basically said, "Hey, read the book if you want to understand any of this," which is just ridiculous.
I mean, 4, I don't think 4 did too bad in that sense. And 4, they needed to introduce something new. That's why they introduced the new enemies.
4's okay. 5's just too much of a step away.
5, I think my main criticism with 5 is that I don't really like Cortana as the antagonist. Cortana's such a beloved character, to have her be cast in that way is kind of like, well... And particularly as I don't think, having finished the game, I don't think there was really any kind of redemption possibility there. It didn't seem like... It just seemed like, okay, you've dealt with a thing. What I would have preferred there, I guess, is to bring her back from the brink of insanity rather than where they left it. And the other thing as well in that game, right at the end, I'm sorry I'm spoiling this for anybody who's played it, but the very last battle, you've got all this stuff going on and you're doing all of this battles, and in the meantime you've got this monologue in your head from Cortana that you cannot hear or pay attention to, and you have no idea what's going on. And that's just bad design. You know, it's... Yeah, they're trying to tell you a whole bunch of story-driven narrative stuff whilst you're trying to stay alive by being shot at, and that's just not a good way to tell a story. So I guess it was just a bit of a mess. Given the progress 343 have made, though, with the Master Chief Collection and how they've kind of grown, I'm hopeful. I'm not completely confident that they'll get it right, but I'm hopeful that they've learnt from those mistakes and gotten better. And I mean, 343 also has a lot of ex-Halo people on there anyway, or ex-Bungie people, as far as I'm aware. So it's not as if they're a brand new team that have risen from nothing to take over. It's just they're a new team. Yeah,
and they recently got back one of the big old Bungie heads back to help run the development of Infinite. So hopefully that'll have a positive impact. But I mean, there's only so much one person can do, right?
Yeah, and it depends how far the project's along too. So, and what changes you can make given the time that they need to release, however long that is going to take.
Yeah. So, do we want to? Yeah. So actually, yeah. Do we want to talk about, we've got obviously people moving in and around the games industry. We've had a few people leave Rockstar and BioWare over 2020 as well. Especially like Rockstar was the big one, with one of the Hauser brothers leaving, and they were essentially the two big wigs there. I mean, people leaving video game studios is not unusual, right? I mean, no one stays in a job forever. But it is always slightly worrying when you hear people just dropping out, like right at the end of projects, or
if you're going to drop out at any particular point, right at the end of a project is the time to do it. I would say, like if they had dropped out like maybe mid-project, it would be bad.
Well, when I say right at the end, I mean pre-release, but also like it's
I'm not hugely concerned by these kind of changes. These people have been at the companies for a decade. It's sometimes it is time to try and do something different. So I wouldn't be too concerned about these kind of things. It doesn't mean the company's falling apart. It just means that people have done their time and they want to move on. I think
in terms of Rockstar, I would probably agree. In terms of BioWare, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, well, BioWare have been a bit troubled. I'm not really sure what I think about BioWare at the moment. I really hope that their next game is a success, because I happen to really like the Mass Effect series, and for all its faults, Andromeda I didn't think was as bad as people make it out to be. It was still a great Mass Effect game. It just wasn't the best Mass Effect game. They tried to go in a different direction. It didn't work. But it's not a bad game. It's just one of those cases where vitriol takes over the messaging rather than people actually going and playing the game and seeing for themselves. So yeah, BioWare is possibly another question. I think Bungie had a similar thing earlier. I'm not sure if it was 2020, but they also had one or two of the founders of Bungie leave. So it's not as if Bungie just suddenly fell into a heap and Destiny 2 was not a good game anymore. The people can leave and people will leave, and that's just part of the parcel, really.
Yeah. Alex?
I feel like the reason we're worried about BioWare is that we were already worried about BioWare. So people do move around the industry, founders do come and go, and you will find up-and-coming game studios given massive properties like Halo Infinite. Change happens. But we're already concerned about BioWare because they had this amazing run with the original couple of Mass Effects and the original Dragon Age Origins, where they'd created amazing, quite niche products which somehow blew up massively. And now they're this AAA studio that the world looks at, and they've never really enjoyed that pressure and attention. They've never really thrived on it. So that's where I worry a bit. I can see the founders wanting to get out and try something different because they got where they got by running relatively small teams on these niche products, which Mass Effect 1 captured the idea of space exploration and, the slow, plodding, Mako planet-covering thing made me feel like a space explorer. I think they might just want to be able to do what they want to do again, but what it means for the studio they leave behind...
Yeah, am I the only person who had no problem with the driving in Mass Effect? I mean, it wasn't great.
Oh no, I loved it.
Fine.
Like I said, I felt
explored
like a
all
space
those
explorer.
planets.
Yeah,
I mean, I did too. Needed that achievement, but yeah, I mean, but BioWare has a pedigree, though, right? Like, I mean, if you look back, even back to the original Xbox, you've got the KOTOR, the original KOTOR. You've got things like Jade Empire. Like they understood how the talk with your teammates, have dice roll combat in the background, narrative-driven story games with player choice involved usually, and then they basically didn't have the Star Wars license, so they were like, well, we're gonna do slightly more hard sci-fi with Mass Effect, and it worked out really well for them. But I think you're right. Like I think that the BioWare of today, like we can't talk about like 2007 BioWare and pretend that it's the same as today's BioWare. Like it's really the same in name only. Most of the people have moved on to other studios. EA have done a lot of chopping and changing over the years since they acquired them. It's a very, very different beast, and I think that they have they were doing okay. Like we have problems with Mass Effect 3 was mostly a pretty good game, except for the ending, and then but it felt kind of like a bit more of a
felt that was way blown out of proportion. It's like,
yeah, for sure. Of course. But in terms of like if you compare it with Mass Effect 2, and I've gone through and played them both recently, Mass Effect 2 is head and shoulders above that in terms of quality, in terms of writing, in terms of characters, in terms of stories. I mean, it's the dark middle chapter. It's the Empire Strikes Back. Like it's easier to write it's easier to put that together than to do to pull off the conclusion to a big series like that. But the Dragon Age 2 wasn't received very well. I actually had quite a good time going back to it, but I can definitely see the problems with it. It was definitely rushed. Inquisition had its own problems. Andromeda was, I mean, even from a technical perspective, it was a nightmare. I mean, obviously, like they did some narrative stuff that worked relatively well, and people were somewhat happy with it, but it just didn't hit those same notes. And then Anthem was just a complete disaster. I mean, so much so that they're still going back to redo the whole game. And now they're saying, okay, well, we've got new Dragon Age coming out, and one of our executive producers has just decided to pack it in before it comes out. And then they also announced a new Mass Effect that they're coming out with. That who knows when that's happening, if it even happens. Like they've got so much riding on, essentially on this new Dragon Age being successful and Anthem being potentially revitalized with all the time and money they're putting into redoing it. Like I feel like they're spinning a lot of plates here, and they're very, very close to falling off. And having people like Casey Hudson, join and then leave again, it just really does not look good for the development of any of those games. So yeah, like I'm definitely worried. I was worried about BioWare from the beginning, but like nothing has assuaged those concerns over the last few years.
They've had two big flops and two very big expensive flops. Can they survive a third? I guess is the question. Anybody got a crystal ball?
I think they'll survive, like in some form. But yeah, I don't think they're ever going to be sort of... There was a point where you would have listed them in the conversation for best developer in the world. Yeah. Just the conversation, but they'd have been there, and they're not now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that part of it is that everyone has... Since they got acquired by EA, everyone's just been looking at them going, okay, so when's EA just going to cannibalize them and just, take them out back with a shotgun and do what they do to all of their other devs, with Visceral and Pandemic and all those other ones that just basically rip them apart, make them support studios for whatever the new FIFA or Madden game is, or get them doing DLC maps for Battlefield.
Or mobile phone games.
So
exactly.
That's the kind of behaviour I would expect from Activision. EA's, yes, but Activision probably would have killed the company by now.
Absolutely.
It's just, I'm not really a fan of Activision.
No, neither.
No.
What I will say for Activision is they can do some good annual stuff. Like, you can imagine Activision having said to BioWare, you're not managing this new stuff, so please just give people what they wanted once a year forever.
do KOTOR 3 episodic.
Yeah, I could do sort
work on
of
the fan service.
Mass Effect Madden.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the action. Yeah, exactly.
Madden effect.
Using psionics to throw the ball. I'm back on board. All right. Well, we've been doing this for a while. We'll touch on one more topic and then we'll move on to some other stuff. I guess probably one of the bigger things that happened this year was Microsoft buying Bethesda. I mean, first of all, what the fuck?
Just pocket change. Pocket change. What are you talking about?
Pocket. Yeah, just a small loan of.
Hey, Dad, how much was it? Like $8 billion?
I think $7.5 billion.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Dad, can I loan $7.5 billion?
Is it that crazy though when you think what Bethesda do and what Bethesda have, or what? It's not even Bethesda; it's actually their parent company. And all of the other companies that are associated with that. So $7 billion, okay, sure. They paid $2 billion for Minecraft, just Minecraft. So to put that into perspective,
that's true, but I would still argue that Minecraft is probably a better investment at this point. But
is it? I mean,
I think ZeniMax is a better buy than Minecraft because Minecraft is an investment in a game. Which, yes, it's a game that's continued as a service and it's still there, but there's no way we're getting a second game out of those guys. Whereas ZeniMax...
Yes and no. I mean, I think that realistically, you make the money on... Sure, the game is the game, but like Minecraft is a phenomenon, right? In the same way that George Lucas didn't make any money on the Star Wars movies, he made it all on merchandise. And
I was about to say, there's a lot of money comes in just from Minecraft-related merchandise, sales of maps and things like that on the marketplaces, and all of the other related paraphernalia that goes along with it that I can't even fathom right now. But there's a lot more than just Minecraft the game.
Reminds me too that the Minecraft movie is coming out next year.
Oh my god! They're building up to that one, are they?
Yeah, March 4th, 2022.
Jesus.
Let me just put that on my calendar. Hang on.
Yeah. I'll make sure I get some tickets for
But
your birthday.
like this was the thing though, yeah. Microsoft or Xbox needed games for Game Pass.
Yeah.
And this solves that issue going forward.
I don't know about solves.
Microsoft
Well,
always had.
helps.
It fills the gap, yeah.
I think it slightly dampens the conversation about Microsoft has no exclusives. It is definitely a shot across the bow to saying, well, okay, we definitely have big IPs. Calm the fuck down, guys.
Absolutely. It's taking that talking point out, right? Is removing that from Sony's ammunition, but both as a talking point, but also in terms of games that Sony can have is the other bit, right? It's not just an acquisition for Microsoft; it's taking away from Sony potentially,
or making timed exclusives that are PC and Xbox, whatever. Yeah,
exactly. But being able to potentially say, oh, the new Elder Scrolls Starfield, the next game from the Bethesda Studios is going to be a Microsoft exclusive, is worth its weight in gold, at least to them, right? That's why they paid so much for it. And to be able to take that away from Sony, who has had these larger IP experiences with studios that they own, with Santa Monica Studios and things like that, it'll be interesting to see. I think that's definitely part of the consideration. But it is a lot of money. I just don't... Okay, do we want to go down the ZeniMax list in terms of what they've got?
Really briefly, just as a headline, they've got Elder Scrolls, wow, massive, and that's both the single-player and online franchises. They've got
and the 23 remasters of Skyrim that will come out, sure.
Yep.
And if the next Skyrim, if the successor is as big as Skyrim, that genuinely is a system seller. That will get people
100%.
at least picking up a Series S. They've got Doom Eternal, which was amazing and left field. They've got the Dishonored games, which I'm so excited about. Arcane, because I love those to bits, albeit they're quite samey, but they're amazing for what they are. What else have they got in their stable?
Wolfenstein.
Oh, Wolfenstein.
Yeah, so Machine Games, although Youngblood was not super well received. Doom Eternal had kind of mixed reviews, although I mean generally people seem to like it, but not quite as much as the original.
Yep.
But I'm definitely excited to see where they go with that. In terms of
newer stuff,
Deathloop,
you've got
you've got like Deathloop and Ghostwire. So you've got Tango Games and Arcane. Yeah. Although apparently there was an announcement that one of the guys who made Prey was actually looking at a new game at Arcane with the Dishonored guys. So maybe a Prey 2 or something along those lines, which cool. I think would be really great because I loved Prey. Like I definitely think that they've got some stuff in there, but I think this is the problem that we're seeing with a lot of this Microsoft acquisitions over the last few years is that the results are taking a while to come out. They announced these studio acquisitions, which is a good thing because they needed to show that they're buying studios, they're really consolidating, trying to get exclusives built. But the results are taking quite a long time, and I think we won't see them for at least another couple of years, probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
and again, I'm pretty much okay with that. To me, really, it just signals more that Microsoft are absolutely committed to gaming. They're not suddenly going to drop off the face of the earth as far as the Xbox is not going to cease to be a thing. It's going to be it's here for the long term. And it's Microsoft basically saying we are committed to this.
I love that nobody likes Fallout. Nobody mentions Fallout whatsoever.
Look, Fallout 4 had problems, and I was not I enjoyed it, but it was nowhere near as good as say 3 or New Vegas. They also Obsidian now involved, so they might make a New Vegas too.
I am excited for the game that Obsidian is developing. I'm just trying to think of what his name is.
Is it Avalon?
No,
it was
Avowed.
Avowed, yes, that's
it's an Elder Scrolls clone, basically. They've started their own Elder Scrolls clone and then bought Elder Scrolls.
Basically, yeah, and that was the other funny thing is that it's now they have Bethesda and Obsidian, so they can make a New Vegas too. But
that'd be amazing.
Apparently, it's set in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity, I think, or something along those lines. Hey, we'll see how that goes. There's a lot on the horizon, but I think we've been saying that a lot with Microsoft recently in terms of, we've got stuff coming. But you talk about how the Elder Scrolls 6 would be a massive system seller, and I would agree. But they still have one more game before that even starts, right? They've still got Starfield to get out, which might be end of this year, might be next year.
I'd be very surprised if they don't have 2 streams going on that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree, but like I think that they were very clear that Starfield is going to come out first. Like that's the main focus, and that the other games are going to be coming out afterwards. I mean, it is still one studio making both of those games, even if they have 2 streams running on it. But like, so that, I mean, if you in terms of release date, like you're probably not looking at an Elder Scrolls 6 release until what 2024. Maybe. Like, I mean, that's quite. I mean, considering when did Elder Scrolls 5 come out? That was what, the 11th. I think it was. Like it was. It's a long wait, and like that's a long time to build a system seller. By that stage, we might have the next half step consoles. Who knows where we'll be by that stage? So, like, I definitely think it's a great investment on their part, but it's going to take them a long time to bear fruit, I think.
I think the other thing that worries me there is a lot of people talk a lot about how Microsoft's not getting games out of its studios, but this year it did actually create quite a lot of games, and they've just not registered, because they put out that exciting splash towards the end of last year, talking about 10 games we made, 10 games we're making. You look at what came out this year: Bleeding Edge, Minecraft Dungeons. That was a disappointment. Like, give me Riverbond any day over Minecraft Dungeons.
What?
Riverbond's
gosh.
But Riverbond is more fun for me than Minecraft Dungeons, hands down.
Okay.
Dungeons is bloated. Grounded has come out. I've not really heard anything about it, but it's here.
Well,
Tell me why.
It's early access, so...
Yeah, tell me why it's here. Battletoads. Okay, Battletoads, lovely little Game Pass nugget, you know. Wasteland 3, wonderful pedigree, sort of come and gone. Gears Tactics, from what I hear, it's a great game. I've dived it. I'm going to play it this year. But we've had probably 10 big games from Microsoft this year, and the only ones that have actually succeeded as big are Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Flight Simulator.
Yeah.
That's a lot of swings and misses.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking too. Is that like Wasteland 3, for example, they did make quite a bit of a thing about acquiring. Was it In Exile? Was it In Exile? Yeah, I think In Exile. To build that stuff, and they had trailers out. They had stuff to try to push it quite a bit, but it was a niche game that they really just didn't find a foothold in. Especially when you're going up against things like Sony's. With Insomniac's Spider-Man and Miles Morales
But they're totally different classes of games. It's like I would never have expected Wasteland to ever compete on the same level with a Spider-Man or that level of Last of Us.
I totally agree. It was never going to happen. But I think that Microsoft have to be thinking about these moves, because at the end of the day, even if they don't compete in the same genres, they're still competing for the same people's time. Right, like at the end of the day, we talk about what games going up head to head to each other. Like I remember back in the day, it was Prototype versus Infamous and that sort of stuff. It's like, well, it's like games that are similar that come out around the same time as each other, coincidentally, sometimes go up to head each other. But every single game is a competitor to every other game, because you only have so many hours in the day. And if Microsoft aren't putting out the experiences that people actually want, and they're taking too long to make these things or to acquire them, then people are going to go elsewhere, unless they have other hooks, like things like Game Pass, like xCloud, like including EA Access with this kind of stuff. There's been rumors about getting Ubisoft Connect involved in that as well. Whether that happens or not, we're not sure. But I think it's a hard ask for Microsoft, because they are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they need to be doing more, but there's only so much they can be doing. And also, you're right, they can't just be pumping out games, because they need to be releasing quality products. The best time to build a game was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's a long-term game for them. They can't just suddenly go and buy a game. Like, they just can't buy and release a game tomorrow. That's just not how it works. So they've got the building blocks there, and they've always been a bit on the back foot, particularly as far as studios developing like IP specifically for Xbox. I mean, Halo's kind of petered out. Forza's probably the only really big one that will sell consoles to a certain degree. but they don't have the big building blocks like The Last of Us, the God of War, the Spider-Man, the things that PlayStation is known for. Microsoft has kind of lost that over time. So it's not something that is irrecoverable, like that it can't recover from. They're making the moves now to recover from that, and they have been for the last year or two, at least. But it's slow. It's going to take time, and I don't know what that's going to mean for the market and for the console. But perhaps once these big things start to release, then there's going to be an uptick of people buying the Series X, and that's probably their long game. Like, they're just playing the long game.
See, I would have put Gears in the same kind of category, but
Gears.
I don't know if Gears 5 is really much of a system seller.
I mean, from a technical perspective, they did push it quite a bit when the Series X came out, saying, "Hey, look at all the improvements that you get for playing, Gears 5 on the Series X." But
I don't know if I just had my own prejudices against the achievement system, and it
I'm definitely the wrong person to talk about Gears.
Yeah.
But that still was a system seller, but I think it's definitely petered out as Halo has over the years. I mean, again, that's a very similar situation. Yeah. Brought in by a big team. That the team did, a trilogy or a set number of games, and they have been moved on to another studio who now run it internally for Microsoft with the Coalition and 343 for Halo. But I mean, the games have been consistently good, apparently. But I haven't touched one. Like Gears of War Judgment was the last one I did, and I wish I hadn't.
Gears of War 1 was the first one I did, and I wish I hadn't.
The game's great.
They're great games. They're just let down by their achievements.
Well, I mean, they're also... Judgment wasn't a great game.
I think
anyway.
Okay,
it was a combination of... Gears 3 did close that story off wonderfully, and then Judgment dropped the ball. And that 1-2 punch of finishing a lovely trilogy and then letting everybody down has let a lot of the crowd who owned a 360 and then jumped to the PS4, they've just walked away. They're done. They had their trilogy. They got their closure. Why come back? And I'm almost in the same camp. I've not played 4 or 5. I loved 1, 2, and 3. I played 3 a couple of weeks ago. But I don't need to play anymore because 3 finished the fight.
Can I understand Forza Horizon 4 if I haven't played the original trilogy?
No. You need to make sure you watch the prequel movies as well.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing. We'll make it quick because we've been here for a while. Cameron, you've written something in here. What have you played?
All right, so mine's going to be very brief. Pretty much, I waited until January to do the Forza Horizon 4 Super 7 update, which took me about 3 hours to crack out. I think it's meant to be significantly longer. However, I found a neat little XP trick where if you start a new content created, track, you get 5,200 XP instead of 200 on any other already played track. Because getting to level 10 took me about 3 hours, so you think times 26 speed? What's 3 times 26?
I'm the wrong person to ask, mate.
78 or something.
Yeah, 78 hours of gameplay.
Oof, yeah.
But no, really, really interesting update. Also went back to Forza Horizon 3. I still had that glitch barn fine. I wanted to attempt to see if I could get it for a very last time before giving up on it forever. I deleted all my save, all 700 hours, to go for this achievement, and it paid off.
Yay!
Finally.
Yeah. So Forza Horizon 4, 3, and 2 are now complete, and I'm hoping if I can get my hands on the DLC, I will have Forza Horizon 1 done by the end of the year.
Yeah, excellent.
Pretty sure I've got all of the achievement-related DLC for 1.
You're going to be the first person I ask. So yeah, that was pretty damn happy about that. Like I've said before, Forza Horizon 3 and 4 are amazing. I really wouldn't recommend starting 2 unless you are a massive fan of podcasts, because doing the All Your Race Belong to Us 2.0, you're going to be spending probably at least 4 full days on it.
Oof.
Yeah.
It's an amazing game, but
I hate the fact that you can't fast travel with road trips. It's just, it was such an afterthought for him, and yeah, very disappointing. After that, I at the end of the last year, bought the Mafia trilogy on Amazon. Finally showed up early Jan. And
Was it you I saw starting one of the the Japanese variant of one of the Mafias, or was that...
I was playing that. Yeah, I'll talk about that when we get to it.
So yeah, started Mafia 1, the Definitive Edition, which I originally played back on PC back in, I think it was 2002, when I was 9 years old. So it's been quite a while.
Age appropriate?
I was going to say, mate, getting started young.
I remember me and my brother fighting over this multiple times to the point that my dad ended up snapping the disc in half.
Made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
But I remember when I was that young, getting to the racetrack mission and just struggling beyond belief. So it was very much
that racetrack was so badly balanced. It was unbelievably difficult.
And even going back, I was playing on classic difficulty to get the achievement from the get-go. Oh my god! I would consider myself quite skilled at racing games now. Yeah.
I hope so.
I think I spent at least 10 hours on that mission. No, I think probably 10 hours is a bit of a... Look, I spent most of one night and an hour or two the next, but it's just incredibly hard. And then you swap it back to easy difficulty, and it's alright, cool. I feel like I'm playing Forza again. But it's very easy to spin out, and I just, always pump the accelerator, so... Yeah.
Yeah, of course you damn hoonigan. Put on the gas.
Saying that, finished the story up last night. I'm just going through all the collectibles now. Phenomenal. The first time I played it, phenomenal now. The only disappointing thing is there is just a few little tidbits different to the original. I feel like trams aren't prevalent as much as the original. Used to be stuff like dogs and that as well. Just very minor details. And just, the voice acting's still pretty good, but, nothing's better than the classic.
Right.
Did they redo the voice
the whole
acting?
game, basically.
I'm pretty sure that they did They redid everything from the ground up, and I'm pretty sure they didn't keep any of the original audio.
Right.
They expanded on a lot of the original missions. So some, for example, you got a partner, Sarah, which in the original game, it's just one of those things that just suddenly happens. They kind of gave her more of a fleshed out backstory, that kind of stuff. Everything made a bit more sense.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was quite enjoyable, and I'm just getting pressure from the AHA community to do Pedro before it leaves Game Pass, so that's probably going to be my next thing, but I finished up the week with 8,535 Gamerscore.
Damn, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Tarragon, you been playing anything?
The only notable games I've played has basically been Cyberpunk. I've been pretty much constantly playing that for the last 2 weeks or however long. And Shadow of Mordor. I finished off both versions of that. Got both of the trials done. So that was a little while ago now. Just on that, the online servers have been extended to, I think, mid-Jan.
Yeah.
That said, I'm still pretty confident that those achievements are going to be unlockable after the servers go down. And I think they even, in the announcement when they extended the servers, they specifically mentioned the Vengeance achievement, which is the one that's probably the most likely to drop out, that they're trying to get some kind of workaround in place so that the achievement is still obtainable anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about those achievements. If you are, just get the Vengeance Vendetta one. That's the most likely to die, but I don't think the challenges are going to die anytime soon.
Yeah. It was a good excuse to go back and do it, though.
Oh, absolutely. I probably wouldn't have gotten to it this year.
No, neither, yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of a good kick up the butt to go and do it, and just to get both versions out of the way, because I think I played the original when it came out, got about 3/4 of the way through the story, and then stopped for whatever reason, and didn't do anything for a while, and then I think the Game of the Year version came out on Game Pass, and I picked it up again, went from the start, and went, wow, this is a really good game, why did I stop playing it? And went through and finished it. So this was kind of a good reason to go back and mop up the original one that I hadn't finished, and get the DLC and expansion stuff done. So I was pretty happy with that. Quite frustrating at times, but yeah, finally got it done. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing. Cyberpunk for the win, I guess. Bugs aside.
Have you encountered many bugs or?
Oh yeah.
I think my thing was starting it up, playing through the I guess the business. What's the business playthrough called?
The Corpo?
Corpo.
Yeah. Getting to the first mission of the game and then being locked in a room and not being able to get out.
Yeah,
so Cyberpunk experience.
I haven't had a completely game-breaking one. I've had a few.
Hey, I love it when it's 5 minutes in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, they lock you in the room. They're like, all right, here's a computer, mate. Now we need you to program the rest of the game.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know, it seems to be getting more buggy the further I get into the game, which is it's annoying because I'm kind of invested in the story, and there are parts of it I'm invested in and following. But to then get distracted by someone in a T-pose standing on top of a car that's moving and then which merges with another car, and you're like, that's really hilarious. What was going on? It's just laughable, some of the bugs now. You're just like looking at but it's really distracting from the story now, and that's a bit disappointing. And I'm not sure a second playthrough is going to help that now, because I've kind of partly seen the story. So yeah,
but where's the team at? Like, I don't know how far I'm in.
You will see them. Yeah, I think I've even seen, like, when you drive, you can drive in third person view, which is probably the best way to drive, because driving's not much fun in first person. But occasionally I've seen my own character T-posing in the car as I'm driving it, which is just like, come on. It's
boy.
Yeah, it's quite silly. You just see some really random stuff. And I think at one mission I completed the mission, and I'd gotten this guy's car and I'd driven it into his garage, and then I'd done some like post-mission dialogue with him, and he said, blah, 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 thanks for all of doing that. And I walked out of the garage to complete the mission, and it was sort of like I fell through the floor or something like that, and the entire screen went black. The mission giver said, you failed the mission. And I'm like, what? Okay, I'll just like, and it just spent like a good 30 seconds on this black screen before I finally like morphing me back onto the map, and I was like, what the hell just happened? Did I just muck something up? No, it was a bug. Reload the last save, do it again. It's
boy.
Yeah, it's just funny little things like that, and just it's just most of it is just lack of polish. Things like dialogue trees, for example, they've got the same person saying 2 lines of dialogue at the same time. It's little things like that. Just animations that aren't quite right. A lot of it's just the little things that you can kind of put past. There's the bigger bugs, which are hilarious and funny, and just those they happen with any kind of open world game. But there's just the little things that lack polish that do kind of take you out of the game a little bit. But overall, it is a good game. I'm not regretting my time with it at all. I'm glad it's not on Xbox One for me. It's definitely playable on Series X. It's not the best experience, unfortunately, but it will be. I guess give it time. If you are interested in the game but have been put off because of all of the foofara, totally makes sense. Wait until they release the big Series X patch, then come to it, I would say. I will say, though, achievement-wise, currently there are a number of bugs in the game that allow you to do things like duplicate items and, as a result, basically get infinite money. There is at least one achievement which requires a lot of money, which is to buy all the cars. So if you just want a quick, easy way to get that particular achievement, it might be worth just jumping on the game now. There's a thing you can do straight after the prologue, which will basically just get you heaps and heaps and heaps of money. And I think after that, all you need to do is basically grind up street cred to get all of the cars to unlock and go buy them. Although I think there might even be a bug in that as well, because I bought all the cars that were available to me. I got the achievement, and then another car popped up that I needed to buy. And I'm just like, Hang on, so is this only for,
boy.
like, buy all the cars that are currently available to me? So if, like, the very first car pops up and I buy that, do I get the achievement? If so, don't worry about it. It's an easy achievement. But, yeah, anyway, if you want to make that achievement a lot easier for you and don't mind spoiling the prologue for yourself a bit, maybe might be time to jump on it and just take advantage of that hack. But, yeah, it's your call. Yeah, it's a funny story. It's a shame it does detract from the story a little bit, just these bugs. But yeah.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, so I've been playing Mutant Year Zero this week. It's
Ooh.
a post-apocalyptic world like Fallout, right? But it's a top-down tactical RPG, like XCOM.
Fantastic game.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it in a mixed kind of way. So the twist is it's stealth-based. It's really dangerous to take on 5 or 6 enemies at once. So you find yourself circling a broken-down gas station or pizza place and picking off people who are isolated. One of the joys of the game is the characters making these impromptu comments on what these strange items they find in the pizza place car park might be. In fact, one of the locations is the zzza place, which actually is just pizza, but the P's fallen off, right? And they find a toaster and they're trying to figure out, is it a hand warmer? So that's cool. But the actual gameplay, it's as if you're playing a Deus Ex or a Splinter Cell, where you're having to case the joint and strip the people off one by one. You find the guy who's no one's watching, you take him out, and that's still satisfying. But it's so weird to do that in a turn-based tactical environment. The joy for this one, which is opposite to Deus Ex or Splinter Cell, there you want to finish the job like that. You want to play stealth the whole way. But with this one, the joy is where you finally commit and a battle goes hideously wrong. And, so I did one of the side missions in the DLC yesterday. I took out this massive tank with a flamer or something, and I thought he was the last guy on the map, so I opened fire with my proper machine guns and stuff. And it turns out he had a brother who hears me halfway across the map and comes charging across through walls to come find me. That kind of stuff is awesome. But it only happens when you make a mistake.
Yeah. If you're playing perfectly, nothing happens.
And also, because there are achievements for playing on Iron Mutant mode, where you don't get to make saves and things, and there are achievements for not using medkits and stuff like that, I did find that I had to play in a way which was exactly how the characters would play. It was thematically consistent, but it did actually reduce my fun, because you sort of want to go in guns blazing a bit. So I do really love it. I sort of wish they'd found a way to put some different scenarios up and force me to fight a bit more, I suppose. But yeah, the vibe is wonderful, and I loved spending time with the characters, and it is good turn-based action. You've just got to let things run off the rail a bit.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed that game. I played it when it was leaving Game Pass, and I was like, don't know if it's going to be for me. And then someone said, you can get the hard mode achievement right at the beginning of the game if you have the DLC, and then just run through it on easy. And I said, all right, cool, I'll do that.
I do recommend that, actually, because doing the DLC on Iron Mutant, like I've said, that's taken some of the fun out of it, because without having multiple saves, I'm not allowed to let chaos reign.
Exactly.
Yeah, so actually, anyone playing this, I know it's a shortcut, but just get the DLC too, boot up the DLC, teleport to the place on the map called Eden, and you'll have all the difficulty achievements, and then go low difficulty, go guns blazing, have a blast. You will enjoy it.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Oh, and don't touch the walkthrough. The walkthrough tells you every angle to go, and okay, have this person take a shot with this. Don't touch it; that will kill. Nothing else this week. Otherwise, recently played Ori 1. That's why I was talking about it, and finished Deus Ex actually. So had great times with both of those. I think most people listening will know those games.
I would hope so by this point. All right, and for me, so it's been a bit of cleanup for me recently, but I have played a couple of new things. So I've recently got a quote-unquote gaming laptop, and you know it's a gaming laptop because it says TUF Gaming on it, and it has a logo on the back of it, and the keyboard lights up. So yeah, I'm basically a living fucking stereotype now.
Did they throw in a bag of Doritos and a bottle of Manju?
Yeah, basically, it was I got some gamer fuel with it, as you do. Whatever. It was a good deal. It was a good Boxing Day deal. It was 25% off, and it was a bit of an impulse buy. But
the Tough Gaming, I'm pretty sure it's Tough. They have a gaming cushion which is essentially a triangular-shaped cushion, so you can have your hands on there with the controller. That's kind of been on my wish list for a while.
That's kind of great. I kind of my birthday's coming up. I might need to put that on there. That's great. But it means that I've finally been able to actually play Game Pass games, PC Game Pass games. So I've been going through and doing a couple of those. So I went in. Actually, I owned zzU for Windows 10. I've had it for ages. So I bought it on my old laptop. Great game. Like, I love it. I did it on the Xbox ages ago, and then so I picked it up for the computer, tried to run it, and it took about 10 minutes to get to the start screen. I was like, oh, okay, this is not going to go well. My old laptop, didn't have a dedicated graphics card or anything. It was really not built for that. This one works pretty well. I mean, my computer sounds like a jet engine whenever I use it, but whatever, it's fine. At least it's staying cool, I guess. Had a great time playing through that again. Really nice, chill experience. I think it would have been better with no collectibles if I could just sort of swim around a bit and just enjoy it, but is what it is. Still got to be a video game, I suppose. And then I've been spending a bit of time playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered on the Windows 10. Going back to what I think is probably the best COD ever made. I know I will get many dissenting opinions on that. People love Black Ops and a couple of the other ones. But I still think that the original Modern Warfare is still the best COD experience that they ever made. The campaign is great. It doesn't overstay its welcome. The missions are really, really good. Dialogue is pretty good. It's not too cheesy. It's comprehensible. It's got a lot of variety to it. And it's just a really, really like tight experience. And like, because I haven't played a COD in quite a while. Like, I kind of fallen out of love with the series after, say, I think it was Advanced Warfare was the last one I played. So I'm well behind on it. But it was really nice going back to a game like that and being like, wow, actually, this is why people enjoy this genre. Like, the snappiness and the fact that it runs at 60 and that it's just really, really just... It was just engrossing. Like, I loved playing through it again. Like, I had such a good time. And it really helps that I think that it's one of the games that has probably one of the most perfect achievement lists ever created. In terms of, there's achievements for playing through the hardest difficulty, there's achievements for doing interesting things within each of the levels, there's a couple of collectible things, and there's one really tough challenge at the end, but it's not ridiculous. And there's no grinding, there's no multiplayer that you need to do, there's none of that. It's just get in, get out, enjoy the experience, and get everything out of it. And I absolutely love that game.
So tell us what you really think.
Yeah, exactly. I know, right? I'm getting passionate about video games. Two games that are on the other spectrum of that that I've gone back to is I've played LA Noire Japan and Mafia 2 Japan. Both games set in the 40s. Now I'm on the opposite sides of the law. Both are good games, and you can tell they're both Rockstar games. And they actually have quite a few similarities, which I thought it was quite interesting playing them so close together. But interestingly, I feel like the fact that they're both open world games actually takes away from the experiences that they're trying to push. Like, once I finished the story for LA Noire, I went around and spent like 2 evenings collecting 25 records, 50 film canisters, 6 books, 95 cars.
The cars in that one were the biggest nightmare because there was no distinction between a lot of the cars.
No, they all look the same.
So you're basically just running around jumping into cars and jumping into another car and jumping into another. I was like, can we please?
Yeah, it's just exactly. You go into a parking lot, like, okay, into this car, into this car, into this car.
Yeah, stand at an intersection and just keep pulling people out of cars. It's just,
exactly. And
that was tedious.
And it really didn't need to be in the game.
No. The thing about that game, interestingly enough, is it was an Australian studio that started that game, and they weren't. I don't think they were even connected to Rockstar at the time when they started that. Then Rockstar came in. This is that development thing where you've got a AAA game, you've got a lead time, you need money to pay your developers to make the game.
So
Rockstar
2K
came in.
Comes in,
2K and Rockstar come in. It becomes a Rockstar subsidiary. And then there was the decision made we need to make it open world. We need to make it more like GTA or whatever. I agree. That kind of took away from the game a bit and wasn't really necessary. Because I did enjoy. I think the story had a little bit of was slightly problematic. Particularly, there was one particular point in the story where they kind of do a left turn, and didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, well, there's definitely some like ludonarrative dissonance because, like,
Yep.
again, you're playing as Cole, but Cole is also making all of his own decisions, and he's his own character. You just happen to control him sometimes.
Yeah, and the whole there's the narrative with the singer, and that whole thing there, which didn't quite gel for me. I mean, I get what they were trying to do with the story, but it just didn't quite work.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Good game otherwise. Some parts of the interrogations were a bit hilarious, where Cole would just fly off the handle. But
So it's the best. Yeah, the best thing about that game is because you have to present evidence to contradict people. He always flies off the handle, and then you present the evidence, which means he has to have some way of backing out of what you said if you decide not to. So he flies off the handle and then says, "Oh, actually, no, don't worry about it."
Yeah.
It's so funny. And also, like, the weird facial tech for that game is just hilarious. I know they touted it, and you can definitely tell the actors they use for it. Like, you can see who they are. But it's like, it's so weird to be like, oh yeah, look for their facial expressions and see if they're lying. And just sort of, like, they obviously need to like super overact like it's like a pantomime.
And even then, it wasn't reliable. That's the thing. You end up,
No, it was bad.
And because I think there are achievements tied to just getting everything right in a bunch of those interrogations. You kind of go, yeah, okay, I've just failed that one. I'm just going to reload from save and go and look at a guide because there's just no way to it's just trial and error, and ain't nobody got time for that.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
and then Mafia on the other hand is most people understand the experience, and Cameron was talking about the first game. So the second game is similar sort of thing where it's very narrative-based. You're basically driving from one narrative point to another, but unlike most... it's another 2K joint. Unlike most of those sort of like, Grand Theft Auto is, hey, you've got side activities you can do. You can, go bowling with Roman or whatever, or you could, you've got a choice of like 5 or 6 different missions that you can do, and there are side stuff and all that. There's basically none of that in this game. It is narrative beat after narrative beat after narrative beat, and so much so that... like, if you want to do any open world stuff, and I say stuff very lightly, you like at the end of the game, you're a completely different situation. Like, you want to pick like chapter 10 instead of chapter 16 because chapter 16 closes things off and you can't play anymore, or the situation's changed, or you've lost all your money. Or that's again, I want to talk about the narrative stuff, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense for it to be an open world game. Like, there is a couple of open world things to do. So there's like 150 wanted posters to collect, which is just an absolute huge amount, which is a huge waste of time. There's one of which that everyone knows about, which is on top of a building that you need to drive off the highway and land on top of a building without falling off it. That I managed to get on my third try, which I remember when I did it originally on the 360, it took me probably about 50 or 60 tries. So at least the muscle memory is still there. So it's like that, but they have like, there's the Playboy collectibles throughout the whole game, which are only during the narrative moments for the most part. In the Japanese version, they're all censored, of course. But like I really enjoyed the narrative playing through it again, and same beats, stay really, really fun. Then the DLC is more like a traditional GTA mode, where it's like just go to one of the icons, do a mission, go to an icon, do a mission. Most of them didn't even have voice acting because it was kind of cheap.
Quick question.
But,
does 2 have skip drive in it?
No.
1 does, and it having the ability to go from like one narrative straight to the next and not have to drive in between, just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like that's really the strength, is that, and so like Mafia 3, for example, has a lot more of that open world stuff. Like, it's almost too open worldy in terms of so many things you can do. It becomes more like an Ubisoft Far Cry style.
Yeah.
Like, hey, take over the location by doing all this side stuff. Whereas, I think Mafia 2 would definitely benefit from like a, hey, skip straight to the next narrative point because that's what I care about. That's what I'm here for. I don't really need to drive down the same road 100 times to the same house that I've been to or the same bar to pick up a mission from this guy to go drive somewhere else to do the mission. I'm just interested in the mission.
It's a shame too, because I feel like 2 has the strongest story out of all of them.
Yeah,
even though I do love 1.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree. But yeah, so that's kept me busy. I've got a couple other bits and pieces that I'm working on. I'm doing a couple of Japanese and Korean stacks, and working on Resident Evil 3 Z version, stuff like that. But nothing too exciting. And so I've just at 2,830 for this week.
So are you guys
Very
planning
nice.
to take on there's a new 10k reward card on Xbox, which went up yesterday, the day before. So if you get 10,000 Gamerscore, you get effectively $10, and apparently when you complete it, you get another 10 on top. So it's literally $20 for 10,000 Gamerscore. That's what a few people have found so far, unexpectedly, right? But it's what's actually happened for them.
So
Interesting. I've looked at the rewards thing. I didn't see it on there, and I'm hoping it's not a US exclusive.
It's definitely not US
No,
exclusive
no,
because
it's-
I've got it here in
I've
the
got
UK, but it took a bit more than 24 hours to show up. It was working
I
as of
didn't
last
see
night.
it on my one, so I might have a look.
see, the problem
But
is
I'll definitely do that.
Problem is with that is I forgot to punch it first and then start the silly
Oh,
games.
Oh no!
I got
feel you.
6k
Hey, lucky
last
move.
night in like an hour, and I could have easily have just. Oh well, got to complete the rest of the collection.
Yeah, get through it.
Yeah, I have noticed. I think it was Planting at least has gone through and done about 10 of those new title updates that have just come out, and that's pretty
I think
much
5 of them dropped yesterday.
Yeah, you can
there's a lot
pretty
of
much
them.
do all of those, and you'll get the 10,000.
Yeah.
pretty
It's
quick.
surprisingly well timed.
Yeah,
That's
as
my
if
thought
they
process.
planned it. They didn't.
Yeah. No, they definitely didn't.
Well, apparently
Fun
Microsoft are not the biggest fans of the attention the list changing has generated, because they have asked him,
Yeah.
for those who've been following along with the zzIrban games, small developer, never had any attention, never made any money, publisher, sorry.
Correction, publisher, yeah.
Yeah. Switch things around to actually say, let's change our lists to be easy. And, of course, the achievement hunting community jumped on it, so everyone's bought these. But
think it was
now
only really-
they've been
was
told
only-
to revert them.
There was only one game I think they did that on, was Cold Silence. They changed
There were
the
several
achievements.
where they changed
No,
them, but
there's
Cold
a few,
Silence is the only one that was properly hard beforehand. So
Yeah.
the others they
Yeah,
changed
'cause they
went
did
from
Castle-
like a
Castle
90-minute
No Escape.
game to a 10-minute game. Cold Silence was actually a full-on proper game that got changed to a half-hour game. So
Reactor
that-
X was completing the whole game, and that's now like you can get 3k in like 7 minutes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the publisher has been fairly active on the AHA Discord server as well, and is basically touting that, okay, next month there'll be another 5,000 Gamerscore coming out, and just like, it was sort of okay at the start, and he was kind of making decent arguments for why they were doing this sort of stuff, but now it's just feeling a bit like, well, okay, you're just shoveling stuff out and using Gamerscore as a way to get a few dollars, and that feels a bit sleazy, I guess. So yeah, I guess that combination plus the persistent updates have kind of really cheapened it, and I think a lot of people are, at least serious players, tend to look at that stuff and go, they'll probably get the games if they've already got them and get the achievements, but it's not really making a lot of friends, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to be buying any more of their games until I'm sure they have all 5,000 points out. Like at this point, I'm just keeping up with the ones that I've got. Like I did Bullet Beat yesterday just to get that done, and I'll probably do Castle of No Escape and that kind of stuff just as they update. But I'm not going to be like I tend not to jump on games early because of things like this, because you tend to get DLC or you get changes or you get updates. Like games at their latest stage are usually in better shapes than when they first come out, so I might as well just wait if I'm not in a hurry. And these games don't offer anything enough in terms of actual good experiences for me to want to get on day one.
Yeah, I mean, Mushroom Quest is probably the only one out of that lot that I've actually got and have played.
Yeah.
And the title update for that was literally things you could complete in the first 2 levels. And just like, really? You're not adding anything to the game except score. And I suspect there'll be another title update for it at some point and give me another free 1,000 Gamerscore.
There's a limit of 1k every 6 months, I believe, according to Java Guides.
And they plan to bring them all up to 5k, which is the max.
Which is ridiculous.
I feel like the tragic thing with this story, because I get where a publisher would come from in terms of plugging away for ages, made some supposedly half-decent games, no attention, but it was someone from within the achievement hunting community who went out there and gave them the idea. Like they've made their own choices, very independent, but they were given the idea by the community. It's the community buying the games. It's the community lapping them up. Like, we've made this monster.
I mean, look, I'm not going to take any blame for Chivo Guides and what he did, all right? Fuck that guy. I'm going to get flack for that. I don't care.
Yo, it's Chivo Guys. Check it out, yo!
Yeah,
could be an outtake.
Chivo Guides.
The fact that he put in his video to talking about all this, saying like, "Hey guys, it wasn't me, but this was a great idea." It's just, oh god.
Yeah.
It doesn't take all the responsibility away from the publisher. And
No,
the
no, definitely
they
not.
are grown-ups,
Definitely not.
and all Chivo guys did was give them the idea. Like, silly idea, but it is a money-making idea, and they're business people, so...
Kill the messenger!
Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently it hasn't made them all that much money anyway, so who knows how much more.
Well, yeah, it's the thing. It wouldn't. It's cost them reputation.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
now they've got a bad reputation amongst most. But on the other hand, the average achievement hunter who looks for cheap and easy Gamerscore, do they care? We might. But on the other hand, we're also playing those games. So what does that say?
At the end of the day, you do stack. You don't add easy updates. You do stacks.
You just double dip. Come on, it's easy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I guess Microsoft have the rules of how much you can release on a game and what the maximum is on a game. So they have the rules.
One thing is that it's nice to see that Microsoft are actually enforcing their own rules for a change.
Yeah,
That's the best thing to come out of this.
The rules were always enforced. They can't. I mean, that's just the way that they set it out. But the thing is, it's taken somewhere to kind of push the boundaries now of what's acceptable. So I guess I don't know the specifics of what Microsoft have said or done, but they apparently have not been terribly happy about the situation. And I guess it's a similar take. There was a while back, there was a game released on PlayStation that was, I think it was literally called 1K in it was a platinum in 10 minutes or something like that. Like the actual name of the game was essentially, you buy this game to get a platinum trophy and that's it, you're done. And Sony were not happy with that and actually ended up pulling it from the marketplace. So and if Sony, who don't really have a lot of respect for the way they treat their trophy system and the integrity thereof. If Sony were doing that, then at least Microsoft, who tend to treat the achievement system with a lot more rigor, you would think that, they're going to come down on those things that are kind of essentially cheapening Gamerscore. The whole cheapening of Gamerscore is a whole other discussion again since Xbox One release. But
you're going to have to... what's the word? You're going to have to give Sony a clap in the back and that developer as well, because they're among the grapes, like Cyberpunk 2077, and your game being the only ones pulled from Sony.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they're in good company.
In terms of Microsoft being more interventionist, there was I'm not going to call it a good anecdote in the Zytlon publisher Discord, where they submitted one of their games and, genuinely unintentionally by the sound of things, they'd left in this thing where if you had a keyboard plugged in, if you pressed a particular key, it would clear a level in a key press. I know that's not much of a change from the pace at which you can unlock everything, but obviously this is now press button unlock achievements. The thing is, they noticed at the last moment, they included this in the submission to Microsoft, and Microsoft reviewed this and found it, and they didn't tell them to fix it. They put a note on saying, this isn't best practice, go ahead and release. And I think we're not going to get any of this stuff fixed properly until Microsoft gets to the level where, at least if somebody is submitting a title update or a game, and it says, oops, you can unlock the achievements with a button press, and they read it, they need to say, no, fix it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, the ID at Xbox stuff has kind of opened the floodgates a bit.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they need to just tighten it, just a little bit.
Yep.
Just a little. I mean, I'm glad that we're not in the 360 era anymore, where you had to have a publisher and you had certain slots and stuff. But yeah, well, it's hopefully they can at least I'd say tighten it up just a little bit so they can get back on board and try and keep some integrity left in the system. I mean, I know I'm one to talk.
Yeah.
It makes me think at the same time too, like if the achievement community really wanted to, we could get unobtainables fixed and like that stuff as well if we threw our heads behind it.
That would be nice, but it is what it is.
I mean, same thing happened with Black Ops 3 back when that was an issue.
Oh yeah, true.
So it is possible.
Yeah, it really depends on the game. I want that DLC for Hellboy to get released.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the bigger question there is, does it matter? We have, 5,000, 10,000 gamer score from these games, right? Out of how many games are out there? Out of how much gamer score has been released in this last year alone? What's the percentage of that as far as all the gamer score that's been available and been released for the year?
It doesn't
or
really
for all
matter.
of the year?
Yeah.
It's so small. It's cheap, yes. Is it destroying the entirety of the gamer score ecosystem? No. Is Gamerscore itself been a lot easier to get for the last 5 years? Yes, but not because of these games. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel it matters as much as we think it does. It's cheap, but yeah, there are always going to be cheap games out there for score. So, I don't know. And I don't think it's doing anything for the reputation of the publisher, and I certainly don't think that the games are any better for it.
No, I don't. Yeah, I definitely don't think so. All right, let's quickly move into some questions. We've got quite a few of them over the break, so we'll just kind of fire through a few of them. Isaac, our favourite question asker, has asked, when first getting into achievements, I had heard about people double boxing, but I rarely hear about it now. Do you double box? Have you ever double boxed? And why do you think no one talks about it anymore? Thanks for the show. You're welcome, Isaac. Cameron, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I'm just trying to remember the last time I did double box. I feel like it's not as necessary now as time goes on, but it's still one of those things where the opportunity does arise. It's always better just to steer your own course. But I mean, like, if you've got a friend that you can tackle something out with, like, I usually go with the social aspect and just work through something quick.
Yeah, I tend to be the same too. Most people tend to own a lot of the same games in terms of multiplayer experiences that need to have a long grind, or that require a boosting party. I still double box fairly regularly. I've still got my Series X and I've got my Xbox One and I have a 360, so I still can set up lobbies and stuff like that. So I did GTA 4, for example. I did the wanted grind for that. I double boxed it. So I still do on occasion, but the reason most people don't talk about double boxing is the only time you hear about it is when it's necessary to make up numbers for a large number of boosts. So if you have an 8-player lobby and you've only got 4 people, those people need to double box, and so that's usually where you hear about it. But most people, I still see a lot of people doing it, but usually it's just they don't really talk about it because it's not all that interesting.
Yeah, I suspect it's mostly older games as well, with older multiplayer, where you need to pad out the numbers, or where there's just not enough interest, or boosting groups. And particularly for us in Oceania, it's a little bit trickier to get boosting groups together at times. So, so if we're in America, it'd probably be a lot simpler. But I'm pretty sure Alex Pluto at the moment is doing a bunch of double boxing around Battlefield. So I know there's work going on there. So it's not as if it's gone away. It's just not a hot topic. It's also a lot easier to double box now, just because you can sign on the Xbox One as well as your 360 and not really have too much of a clash. It's gotten simpler. So there's not such a big hoop. Like, you're not going and buying that extra 360 or those 3 360s to get that quad boxing thing going on. I remember back in the day, Crandy, I think he had 8 on the go to do. It was at least 4, but maybe 8 on the go to do the Graw boosting. And that was just so tedious. But yeah, that was just like, it's a constant grind. You're just going around in this loop and around in this loop and around in this loop. It took him like a year and a half, I think, to get that leaderboard achievement, or to get the last ones. Yeah. So I guess it's possibly just not as necessary, and it's just not as visible. I think the last game I did do any double boxing on was Guitar Hero 3. And there is a achievement there for getting 500 wins, and that is literally one-on-one. So, and if I had had a second person there, it would have actually added about another third of the time again to actually get the achievement, because essentially the way you would get that is you'd start up a group of like best of 7, and you would win 4 of those, and those 4 counted as 4 wins. But if you were trading off against somebody else, you'd be getting 1 to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and that would just take longer. So it was actually quicker to double box that one. Plus, nobody wants to do it. So,
hey, Cameron, we still need to do that, right?
It's funny, just as we've been talking about this, I just got sent a message from somebody on the Discord about, like, so, when do you want to do Guitar Hero 2?
Oh, boy. Yeah, okay.
Hi, Nick.
yeah, but that's the last time I can recall, like, properly spending a lot of time double boxing. I might have chucked in an extra player or something like that for a session if it was needed, but yeah.
Yeah.
Alex?
I have double boxed exactly once, which was last month, because I just got the Series X in, and I still had the one.
Welcome
hooked
to the
up.
dark side.
I suspect it'll be the only one. It was for 12 Days of Christmas. I found out what the final criteria was going to be the night before it came out, and I thought, hey, let's actually take a shot at being one of the first people to do this. I ended up not first, but close. And so I booted up Journey to the Savage Planet, or whatever exactly it's called, on both machines, and got 2 of the co-op achievements, which helped me make my chain. And that was useful because it required no coordination. You know, it was just me doing it right then and there. As a general thing, though, no, I don't do grinds because, like...
Because you're saying we're not.
Yeah, there's no sort of achievement to a grind. Like, you know, a challenge achievement I'll go for. A grind achievement, generally no, unless I'm actually loving the game. So there's no need for me to double box like that.
Oh, you're the smart one, that's for sure. Oh. All right, another question from Isaac. Hey guys, have you ever purchased any customizables in games, like character skins that weren't tied to achievements, or something that was completely cosmetic? If so, what game and why? What would get you to buy some in the future? I'll just quickly say no, never, and never. I can't think of any situation in which that I would be spending any kind of money on something that wasn't achievement related.
I can't recall any ever since I've been achievement hunting. Probably in the past, maybe like back when I was playing like first-person shooters competitively. Might go for the weapon camos and that kind of stuff, but nothing prevalent that comes to mind.
I just don't like supporting that kind. I don't like supporting microtransactions in paid games anyway, and so that's kind of the behavior I don't like. Especially if I'm not getting anything achievement wise from it, then I just don't see the point in it. To be honest,
I'll do it with free to plays sometimes, but that's pretty much where I draw the limit.
Fair.
I have spent way too much money on Elite Dangerous ship skins and other additions.
I knew that was going to be the one.
Yeah. I've probably paid for the game 5 or 6 times over at least, just in cosmetics. And it's usually they come up with like a sale with a special variant of a certain skin. I'm like, woo! But in that case, I also feel like I was supporting a game that I'd gotten a lot out of. I've got upwards of nearly 2,000 hours in that game. And that's a lot of bang for not many bucks, if that makes sense. Because it was never a full price game, at least for me. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with having paid for those cosmetics. And yeah, my ship does look cool, so, you know. And can fire with nice coloured lasers. But as far as other games go, I don't think so. I probably have, but I can't recall off the top of my head, and it certainly wouldn't have been anywhere near as extensive as Elite.
Alex?
I've probably played for a cosmetic at some point. I'm totally on board with it if I'm going to play a game for 50 hours and it's 50 cents or whatever. I can't think of any, but what I have spent far too much money on over the years is Rock Band songs. I completely love the Rock Band games, and obviously you can complete the lists with just the games on the disc. But you know, actually,
I just realised actually, my Rock Band, like when Rock Band came out, like I had all of the DLC for the Guitar Hero games up to that point as well. But when Rock Band came out, for a while, I was literally buying every single DLC they released, like every single one, and that lasted for about 1.5 to 2 years. So I have thousands and thousands and thousands of songs, and I've probably only played 10% of them, which is just silly. So yeah, I have spent many hundreds of dollars on DLC for the Rock Band games, along with, of course, the games themselves, and also the licensing. Like there's those little you could buy like an extra license pack to export the songs from one
Yeah.
version and import it into the next. So I've done all of that too. Yeah. Yes, that would be the other big one.
Yeah, and I know it's not
$2
skins,
million.
but functionally it's the same as a cosmetic in many ways. But then you are getting more gameplay out of it. And for
Yeah,
me,
I would
have
argue it's
about
probably not-
600 songs.
It's
all
probably
told,
not really a
but-
cosmetic. Actually, it is actually more gameplay. It's DLC.
Yeah,
So it's
well,
possibly
that's the
a different
closest I
category.
get.
Yeah.
All right. Suckers. All right. So we've got one from Mr. Mary Berry Christmas from the Discord here. As a lot of games have been releasing that haven't really had much success. Is it just a string of bad luck, or do you think making a game work on so many consoles, he's talking about cross-gen games here, is partly to blame? How much better would Cyberpunk or Watch Dogs have been if they'd only run on the Series X or the PS5? We've kind of touched on this already.
Yeah, I was going to say Cyberpunk wouldn't have made any difference. It was designed and written for PC, and PC had the current set of hardware and tuned back. So I don't think it would have made any difference there. It just simply, the older consoles just simply couldn't run it.
Yeah.
It's not like Cyberpunk was being held back by the older consoles. It was being pushed forward for the newer ones, and the old ones can't handle it at all. Watch Dogs, similar thing. I think that Watch Dogs is actually on PC as well, if I recall.
See,
So
I,
again,
I think Legion just more suffered from having, like, just not being fun.
Not being good. Yeah, the game
Yeah.
itself was more the problem than anything.
yeah.
I
From
think
a
that,
technical standpoint, it works. It's just very dull.
well, because they have no main characters and very little narrative to drive the thing forward, which is what happens when you can play as anyone.
It's banking on a gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I think most of the problems that, from a technical perspective, that these games are having is less that they were going to be running on old hardware and more that dev kits for these new consoles didn't get out to people for quite a while, and that building them for the new experiences is more the problem, and being able to up-res them and to get the most out of the hardware. So I think it's more the shoe's probably more on the other foot in terms of them develop, because again they were probably developing most of the stuff for old hardware until they got access to the dev kits, because why wouldn't they? But yeah, I don't really think it's holding them back. I think it might do in the future.
I think it really would also depend on the game. If the game was for PC, like if it was releasing on PC,
it shouldn't matter.
It won't matter. If it's a console-only game, and let's say take Halo Infinite as an example here, it was targeted originally for the Xbox One. So that, in that sense, yes, it is probably has been held back, and is not going to be as good a game as it could have been if it was targeted for the Series X right from the beginning. And maybe that's what they're doing now with their retooling of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, game-by-game basis, Halo Infinite, quite possibly. Cyberpunk and Watch Dogs, not at all. Yeah.
I think what we are seeing is it's increasingly tough to make a game that works for high-end PCs and for the original Xbox One and PS4.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we are ready for this next generation in that sense. And for Cyberpunk, for example, I think that's the struggle that you see. It's not being cross-gen consoles. It's just that, to be honest, if your game is a stellar performer on PC, it is really tough to also flex that all the way down to the original X1 and PS4.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We've got here Gwyn's Candle. What is the best, worst game you have played? I'll give you some time to think about it. Just my answer is Alpha Protocol.
Oh, I love that.
Great, fucking amazing game, but clearly unfinished.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's unfinished because I know a guy who was on the QA team for that, and he said they were reporting bugs daily, and they were just like, we just got to get it out. For those who don't know, Alpha Protocol was a game released by Sega. I believe Sega. Was it Sega?
Yeah.
It was released by Sega. It was essentially supposed to be a spy version of Mass Effect, a take on Mass Effect. So you play a spy who has been recruited into an agency. You need to make various decisions in terms of like dialogue choices, who to trust, who not to trust, what missions to do. We'll do that. Yeah. Who not to trust, who what to trust. what, like, do you stealth the section? Do you shoot your way through? All these different things having different impacts. Ideally, like, from a concept, it's super, super interesting, and I love playing through it. But the game is completely broken. The best example my QA friend said was they didn't have time to change the walk speed when you crouch. Well, the animation. So if you crouch, you'll see your legs actually move at the same speed as when you're walking, but they just slow it down slightly. But the animation is identical. Like, that's the level of ridiculousness. And also, the pistol will kill everything. Like, if you use the pistol ability with the headshot slowdown ability, you can kill every boss in 5 seconds.
So it's a Halo 1 pistol then.
Like, yeah, very much. Like, it's crazy. But it's multiple playthrough, relatively short game. Highly, highly recommend people play through it if you can find the copy. But it is a bad game that I absolutely love.
It was certainly freely available on Steam back in the day, which is where I played it. I'd describe it as Splinter Cell with a dialogue wheel, and I love my Splinter Cells and Deus Exes, so I lapped it up. So rough, but yeah, like, so up my street.
Yeah, I heard really good things about it, and it was in my pile of games that I should go back and play. I've got like 1,800 games on my tag now. There are so many games that I should go back and play. I'm just not going to, and I'm at peace with this now. I can't go and play all the games. So yeah, I'd heard good things about it, but just never quite got to it, unfortunately. I'm trying to think of bad good games for myself.
I've got one, Generation Zero.
Oh, yep, you and Alex, Professor Pluto, have been having a good time with that, right?
Yeah, from when it launched, it was apparently a very buggy mess, and there's a whole bunch of unobtainables. But ever since me and Alex have jumped in it, for the most part, it's a pretty enjoyable game, although it is very difficult.
Yeah, and a little unfinished.
They said the anniversary update added a lot of the changes needed for it, but I think it's a pretty good game.
I've heard things from you and some of the AHA guys talking about how they're really enjoying it, despite its flaws.
Yeah. Honorable mention to Hannah Montana. It's a bad game, but actually sort of fun.
My favorite anecdote about that game is when they tried to get it certified for the PlayStation, they said the game was too short. So what they did was, instead of adding more game, they just reduced the walk speed in certain areas so you couldn't sprint. Like, that's the worst padding I've ever fucking heard of. But like, that does not surprise me in the least. But yeah, I mean, Hannah Montana was actually of the, if people don't know, I have a habit of, for my 100,000 Gamerscore milestones, I tend to play a relatively bad or weird game. And Hannah Montana was my 200,000 back in the day. Seems like a long time ago now. But I've played much worse than that over the years.
Do Toro for your 1.6.
I really should, actually. Oh. Kirby loves that game.
Don't, it's awful. You should read Crandy. Crandy did a really good review of it on TA. It's an amazing read for a really, really bad game. Hannah Montana, speaking of that game, that was the first game I think I specifically bought for achievements. So that was the beginning of the downfall, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think mine was King Kong. Although that was actually a surprisingly good game.
Yeah, I didn't get King Kong till later. I had played the CSI games. I actually played them. I enjoyed them. I actually played the games for that, but they were also considered the kind of the early easy Gamerscore games. And admittedly, I did later on go and get the rest of them to do that sort of thing. Very, very dishonourable mention to NCIS. That is the worst game.
I was gonna say worst game, NCIS.
Oh, that game was terrible.
That ending was amazing.
I've forgotten the ending because the rest of the game was so terrible. It's just like
you stop a nuke.
Oh, that's right. Oh my god.
NCIS.
Oh my god.
Yeah. All I remember is actually there are some sections in that game which are kind of point and click, and I remember going, I'm looking for this thing. I have clicked everywhere on this screen and it is not there. And going and looking at a walkthrough and eventually finding like a picture where it points to the 1 pixel thing that I needed to pick up. And I'm just like, this is not a good game. And there was no heat map sort of stuff that they have in like modern point and clicks. So it's just like, argh. And just the pointless hacking minigame and stuff. It was just, anyway. Anyway, so that was, that's not a good bad game. But yeah, I played the CSI games, and I think Hannah Montana was specifically the first one I specifically bought because I knew it was easy Gamerscore. And it was kind of like, it's just not the kind of game that you should be playing as a, 30-something man at the time.
You keep your opinions to yourself. Yeah. I've yet to do it, but I'm looking forward to the day I do.
Alex, anything on... I mean, you've been achievement hunting for a little while, but have you played any great trash?
I can't think of a particular answer, partly because I've played a couple of trash games. When I started the achievement hunting, around about January in particular, but a couple of times at the start of the year, I played games that I regretted, but I wouldn't recommend them. Like, it was enough for me just to say, no, I'm not doing this, actually, and I've been really happy with my gaming the last 6 months. So the best I can come up with is a couple of games I actually think are good, but I wouldn't have expected them to be. And this is casting way back when, but I used to follow sort of game jams. And a game jam is where you lock a bunch of developers in a room for 24 hours and give them a theme maybe and see what they can come up with. And out of one of these, I've been struggling, but I can't find the game online, sadly. But back in 2009, there was a team given the prompt Caverns, and they made a game called Beacon. And all it is, you're this tiny little white astronaut going around these brown caverns doing some really basic platforming, trying to understand what this planet you've crash landed on is. But actually, somehow in 24 hours, they nailed the atmosphere. It's a 10-minute game, but I must have played it over the years 20 times. And so in terms of best, worst games, no, this is a good game, but I'd never expected to go into a 24-hour game jam and find something that I've still got a copy on my computer.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. All right. That's a really, really good answer. There's some really interesting stuff that's come out of game jams and then been expanded on and become real things. It's pretty amazing to see what people can do when you throw enough pizza and beer at them.
I think that there was a visual novel that came out relatively recently on Xbox, and it was a budget game called One Night Stand, and it was actually very well.
Yes,
that's funny.
That I believe came out of Game Jam or something similar, and it was just kind of a thrown together idea, and became actually quite a good game. So
nice.
And then you got caught in the room wearing her panties.
Yeah,
I mean you did, yeah. And then
let's face it, we all did. There is an achievement. So.
All right. And so we've got another question now. Xeno Josh, have you considered doing the podcast live? Yes, we have, but
we're doing it live right now, and nobody's.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the main problem is that we record this on a Friday evening over here, which would be a little difficult. But we have thought about it, and we might do some more thinking about it in the future as we've moved the times around a little bit to see when people are up and if there's any interest.
Yeah, the times we discussed it, there's a couple of problems there. Is the logistics of it in the first place, just getting all of the streams together, making sure to cross the streams and get it all to broadcast correctly and not screw up. It's actually surprisingly. There's so many things that can go wrong, basically, and it's fairly technical to try and get it all to actually work. And then trying
to get people to watch it.
Yeah, well, then getting people to watch it, and to do it properly, you would need to set a start time so that people know when to start watching it. There's a whole bunch of preparation, and every time we've kind of thought about it, it's just been like, yeah, we could do that, but yeah, God, there's so much to do, and it's very it's a challenge to think about it, and then who's going to actually watch it anyway? So, particularly at our time zones. So yeah, it's something that I'd love to do, but. It's just been.
Just keep throwing us that Patreon money, and we'll see.
One thing I have noticed there, because some other podcast I've seen occasionally does live ones, and As a podcast, it doesn't particularly help the format because actually everyone there's looking at a screen. That doesn't come across in the sound, etc. But as a community event, it is quite successful and fun. And potentially you could do an off-podcast live stream event at some point where people just want to hang out with the panel, let you share your screens a bit, see your faces and chat. It might work as an off-label thing.
It's not a bad idea, actually.
If they want to see our faces, question.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
I'm obviously privileged to have had that honour and would jealously guard from sharing it with anyone else. I will treasure this day.
What do you mean?
Well,
I can see our screenshots from you on Twitter already.
Yeah,
What?
I was going to say.
I wouldn't have worn this dress.
I mean, if you do want to see the ridiculous backgrounds we sometimes use for these episodes, you can always, if you join the Patreon, there is a special RGS Champs Discord channel where we post the ridiculous and usually inappropriate backgrounds that.
Yeah, I was going to say some of them are a little bit risque.
Yeah, I mean, look, since Kirby has been busy, we've managed to pull them back into this sort of PG territory.
Yeah,
Tame now.
But if he comes back, we'll see what happens. But we at least try to make them mildly amusing, which is usually the bar that we set on this show.
Mildly amusing.
Look, if I can be mildly amusing, I've done my job. All right. I've earned my Patreon bucks.
So when are you going to do that?
Yeah, no. Well, look, it's an ongoing process. Okay, it's a 117 episode experiment. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I think it'll happen at the 2-hour 45-minute mark. Just wait for it.
Yeah, exactly. Nearly there. All right, so we've got one last question from Mary Berry Christmas again. He calls me out and he says, "Hey, Neomaster." That's me. How did not buying games work out for you? So, I tried not to buy any games in 2020. How did I do? Did I break down, buy a couple of Ratalaika games or any AAA games that I couldn't pass up? How hard was it? Oh, fuck's sake. Okay, right. All right. So I left this question for last on purpose because I knew I was going to get fucking called out. Yeah, were there any? Did I buy a couple of Ratalaika games or any other AAA games I couldn't let up? And how hard was it? Did it get any easier? It was okay. It was surprisingly easy, actually. Partly because I didn't do an amazing job, but I definitely bought less than I would buy normally. I bought a lot less games. I barely even looked at the sales. I cleaned up a lot of backlog stuff. I mean, I earned nearly 280,000 Gamerscore last year. So I was 200. I think I was about 60 points off hitting that. So I was at 279, 940. But all right, let's have a look at the receipts. I pulled them up. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
just one or two.
16,
yeah, okay.
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25.
280,000 gamer score in a year. That's just mind-boggling. Go back a decade, and that's just like
yeah. No,
that's the
I couldn't
entirety
even imagine
of someone's entire gamer score for their entire lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain people who earned nearly $1 million in less than 8 months.
Yes,
yeah, not mentioning any names, but yeah, so there's some really skilled players out there.
Multiple, yes, there are definitely multiple players out there who can earn that level of gamer score in a year. Yes,
God's-like abilities.
Yeah.
And let's be clear, shade aside, like there are also, and lockdowns maybe help with this, some amazingly committed gamers who, by
100%.
themselves, have somehow actually done hundreds of thousands of gamer score. And
completed the entire Ratalaika collection.
Well, I was a bit surprised though. I mean, I don't consider myself anywhere near as active in achievement hunting as I was several years ago. I just don't. I stopped entirely for a couple of years and come back to it a bit. But I was quite surprised to see at the end of the year, my stats for the year, I'd almost done 100,000 gamer score. And I'm just like, when did that? What? I'm constantly surprised each month when I end up putting on 8,000 or 10,000 gamer score, and I'm like, but I only played 3 games. Where did this come from? Anyway, it just feels like gamer score is so easy to get these days.
Oh yeah, it really is. Okay, so I probably bought maybe 10 or 15 games or so, and again, we're not talking we're not talking any real AAA stuff. So some of it was like I picked up Strange Brigade so we could play it all together. I picked up, I think, Metro Exodus Gold Edition because it was on a good sale. And like I picked up a couple of the, like I picked up like a lot of it was DLC. So like I picked up the Mutant Year Zero DLC, some stuff for the Surge. So actually, in terms of games, I probably maybe bought 10 games, where usually I would buy closer to 40 to 50, maybe even more per year. Actually, probably a lot more than that. But yeah, I think I did relatively well, and I a lot of those were paid using gift cards and that kind of stuff from my rewards points. And looking at my my year end stats in terms of period summaries and that kind of stuff, at least from TA. Essentially, my goal is, the reason I'm doing this is to save money because I bought a house and I'm now broke. And also the house breaks and I need to fix things. But also so I can work on my backlog and actually be dedicated to doing it. So I started 248 games this year, and I completed 288 of them. Well, completed 288 games in general. So I'm on the right direction. I'm pushing. I completed 40 more games than I started, and if I keep on that path, I will be done by the year
2077.
Yeah, I was going to say probably about 2050 or so, roughly. I've got about 250 games I need to finish, or at least get as complete as I can before I'm completely done with my tag. I'm sure I will probably pick up the odd game here or there, but honestly, like, it's actually gotten easier as the year has gone on, and I'm going to be probably carrying that over into this year. I haven't really bought anything this year yet, and I'm probably going to keep it that way, especially because I did grab a few things for the Hall of Fame competition because I wanted to really make sure that I was number one for that, and a few other, and
October.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a guess how much I spent?
Oh, I don't even want to know. How much? What do you got?
1,200.
12. What? Jesus Christ!
To win that competition.
You really paid for that console.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got a lot of games to play.
Hey! Look, at least I'm playing the games. I'm not using them to get myself into a first place position like some other people.
Yeah. Well.
So I got to say, I just want to lead onto your conversation. I have heard Valak and Red talking about setting themselves a limit for buying 2 games this year, and because the game share partners, that makes 4 between them.
Good luck.
I set this entire mentality myself of buying 2 games this year plus Scott Pilgrim because I already agreed on that. Like, already had that mindset last year.
Okay, that's the first exception. Yep.
The first of many more. Exactly.
And which has quickly changed into a monetary amount now rather than a game limit, to which I've already spent $90 across 9 games.
It's the 8th, for fuck's sake. Oh, all right. Yeah.
Saying that though, physical games that I can trade in to get the value back at any time I want.
Yeah, whatever you got to tell yourself, mate.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so I'm trying really hard not to buy any more games. I will try and be as good as I can, and I've been inspiring other people to try and be good too. Over on Achievement Hunters Anonymous, shout out to those guys. We're all trying to do a big year of the backlog and work through our stuff. So we'll see how that goes. I will report back maybe once a month on how many games I've bought, and so you guys can keep me accountable.
I'll see if I can start another 500 games this year.
Oh boy, you're killing me. You complete.
I feel like
who was it? Who was it that said that their goal for the year was to drop the completion percentage by 20%? What the hell is wrong with you?
I'd love to be able to drop my completion percentage by 20%. I don't think it's actually possible.
If people are idolizing me and trying to get their completion percentage down to 0, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have special accounts for bean dives which go from 100% down to 0.064 or something.
My biggest regret of last year was not starting a bean dive before the Hall of Fame competition.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I should have done it, but oh well.
The bean dive was great for me, actually, in terms of the not buying too much. I definitely still buy plenty of games, right? A lot more than 10 a year, probably. Probably 20 a year, I wouldn't be surprised. But what's helped me control it a bit is, back in July, I bean dived, really carefully looked through. I bean dived all the games I really wanted on my tag that I wanted to play. And firstly, that's got me playing them because I like to complete the stuff I've started. But secondly, it's put a really nice benchmark up, actually. Like, this is the stuff, when I sit down, that makes the cut that I want to play. So if I'm going to buy another game, does it make that cut? And that's been a really useful lens for me to look at things through. Like, okay, I've got this Stellar Shadows 20 games that I dived that I've not actually managed to touch yet. You know, the next two I've got coming up, Ori Will of the Wisps and Sunset Overdrive and Middle-earth Shadow of War and stuff like that. And unless the one on sale is as good as them, it's not good enough for me.
That's a great